which 12, Leroy Kelly, 14, and Emmitt Smith, 21, had more. You look at all these statistics and you look at all these numbers, and you go up and down each and everything that happened in this game. And really, from the first quarter on, it was complete domination by the Philadelphia Eagles. Defensively, the Giants couldn't run against them. And yes, Daniel Jones made a lot of mistakes. And a lot of people say Daniel Jones didn't show up in the big game. He just didn't show up in the big game. I beg to differ. His numbers show that he didn't show up in the game, but his offensive line didn't protect him. And Saquon Barkley couldn't get hot. You saw in the first game, in the wild card game, how did the offense pick up? How did it open up the field? How did it open up for guys like some of the wide receivers that they have? It opened up because of the running game. And all the different weapons that the Giants had in the wild card game couldn't open up. And it has a lot to do with some of the defensive players that the Eagles have. Johnson. And the different players that they can defend against on the Giants. Now, I know a lot of people looking at this game, and they're going to go up and down each and every roster of the game and attack the Giants just because the rosters were weak. I look at the Giants as a whole. And in going into this game, I thought they had the better coach. Dable has shown this year to be a great coach under pressure. Wink Martindale has shown that it didn't matter how good the offense was or how strong the offense was. He found a way to stop the offense and stop the bleeding early in the game. But in this particular game, the Giants couldn't stop the bleeding. There were too many weapons, too much talent. A.J. Brown, Smith, Sanders, Boston Scott. All these guys were dominating at the line of scrimmage. And again, the offensive line, Johnson wasn't 100% healthy. Obviously, had a high ankle sprain. He hasn't been healthy going into the second half of the season. He was limping off the field every time he stepped on the field. But this has been one of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive line in football. You look at Philadelphia, yes, they are far out the superior team. But we have seen this before. We've seen the Giants knock off superior teams. If you remember, in 2007, in the Super Bowl, the undefeated New England Patriots. Nobody thought that the Giants had a chance in that game. Plaxico Borges did. Eli Manning did. Michael Strahan did. O.C. Umenyor did. And that's the difference. And to me, the Giants didn't have a chance. And you sit back and you try to look at everything, all the aspects and the statistics of this game. There was none. Because the Giants just didn't show up really didn't show up to this game. Now, going into the offseason, the Giants have a lot of decisions to make. They do. Saquon Barkley, as we heard Joe Shane speak at the press conference, the final press conference, and obviously Brian Dable spoke about Daniel Jones and interesting things that they said. The plan is that he'll be involved with the 2023 season. They're going to probably tag him $31.5 million. The deadline is March 7th, so I believe they will. Contract projections for Daniel Jones is 3 years, $75 million. For a quarterback that played the way he did this year, it's absolutely worth it to give him a 3-year extension, $75 million. An average quarterback at market value right now is making $32 million a year. Greg Jennings says Daniel Jones is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. And a lot of people would think that. Over 3,000 yards. 600 yards running. Jalen Hurts, the quarterback that he played in this divisional game, is him and Josh Allen the only two quarterbacks that had those numbers throughout the season. Not Patrick Mahomes, not Justin Herbert or Tua or any of these quarterbacks that have good legs and can run and throw on the run. None of those guys. It's only 3 quarterbacks. Sports News projects that he will make between $25 and $30 million per year. And listening to Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley has an understanding of who he is as a player. He really does. His talent is above the league talent at his position. Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Delvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon. How many running backs this year were better than Saquon Barkley? Those are probably the six or 7 best running backs besides Saquon Barkley in the league.
And a lot of those guys had down years this year too. Kamara especially, and even Derrick Henry with the injuries since he's gotten that contract, not the same.
Saquon wants to make Christian McCaffrey money. Christian McCaffrey makes an average. He signed a $64 million contract, $16 million a year, $36 million guaranteed, $30 million fully guaranteed. Is that so much to ask? And I listened to Joe Shane at the press conference, and he doesn't look like he's interested in giving Saquon Barkley a long-term deal because he believes he can find a running back in the draft in the 2nd or 3rd round for cheaper. Now, it quite possibly could happen that they let Saquon Barkley go. I've heard Miami's interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
I've also heard that if the LA Chargers decide to part ways with certain players in the offseason, they might think about bringing him in as their second back.
Wow.
So you look at the picture right now for the New York Giants. Going into next season, they have, I would say, about $67, $68 million right now that they can spend, that is going to be on the cap, that they're going to be able to move with. Now, they can't trade away Kenny Golladay. Nobody wants him. Now, are they willing to trade a draft pick, a 2nd or 3rd round pick, to get rid of that contract? That's $17 or $16 million they can take off the cap. If that happens, the Giants will be positioned to spend close to $80 million. Then they can re-sign Saquon. Then they can give Daniel Jones his money. They'll have enough money to bring in a wide receiver either in trade, free agency, or the draft. They're going to maybe add 2 because they need weapons.
Definitely do both, maybe, if you can.
And they need to add some offensive line help. It's, to me, the Giants are put in a bad position, and the Eagles are put in such a great position because next year, going into the offseason, the Eagles have 2 first-round draft picks. They have a tremendous amount of young talent on the team. They have the quarterback of the future in Jalen Hurts. They have a chance to win a Super Bowl this year, and it doesn't matter, win or lose, they go into the offseason with a bunch of riches. They're positioned so very well. And by the way, I think they're under the cap by like $45 or $40 million. So honestly, they have money to spend in free agency too, if they want to add a piece here and a piece there. The Giants will be better next year. The Eagles could be astronomically better next year with the young talent and the youth that they have control of. They have a quarterback that's 3 years in. They still have 2. Yep. They still have another year with him before they have to sign him or give him an extension. And they have these draft picks. They have a top 10 pick, which they got from New Orleans in the trade. And they have a late 20s pick because it's their own.
Right.
I think right now would be 27, 28.
It'd be 29 if they lose in the NFC Championship game. If they go to the Super Bowl, it'll either be 31 technically or 30, depending on if they win or lose, because the Dolphins had to forfeit their pick this year.
If you sit back and you wonder and you try to argue the points of what the Giants did in the game, there's really nothing you can argue about right now. The only thing that you see and what you saw on national TV at 8 o'clock at night on Saturday night was a Giant team that was just absolutely outplayed by the Philadelphia Eagles. Absolutely outplayed.
Especially in the trenches. It was really bad.
And they were outcoached. And Dable made a mistake in the first quarter If you remember,
Yeah.
when he decided to go fourth and third. It was fourth down.
4th down and 8.
I'm sorry, 4th down and 8 on I think on their 50-yard line. It was in the middle. It was on the 50-yard line. And he made a mistake. He thought he can go 4th and 8. And it really cost him. It cost him a touchdown, and it put them down 14-0. And we could go back and forth on what the Giants didn't do right and what the Giants did do right. The only thing that I could say, and I know Giant fans are going to sit here, they were happy that they were even in that position to possibly win and get to the NFC title game. When you're in that position, there's not going to be it's not going to happen every single year. It's not going to happen every single time that they're going to get into the divisional game and they're going to play the Eagles or they're going to play the Cowboys or they're going to play the 49ers or any of these powerhouse NFC teams. When you have a chance to be there, you make sure you show up to the game. And they didn't show up to the game. Daniel Jones tripped on his own offensive lineman's leg. He made a lot of mistakes. Do I blame Daniel Jones on the loss? No. It was not Daniel Jones' fault on the reason why they lost. There are so many arguments to what happened in that game as a Giant fan. And Speedy, you're a Giant fan. And I know when we were sitting and we were watching the game, you put your hand over your head about a couple of times. You were wondering why did they do, and Wink Martindale, who to me is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. He really is. As far as the blitz is concerned, he reminds me the closest to Rex Ryan. The way he likes to blitz and he likes to use his safeties, his corners, he brings them up. He does so many things rapidly at the line of scrimmage. He didn't do it in this game. And by the way, what did I tell you about the wide receiving play? Slayton was nowhere to be found in the game.
Yeah.
None of their wide receivers were in the game. And how many times we had, what's his name? We had
Ryan Honey.
Ryan Honey on the show. Ryan Honey on the show last week. And Ryan Honey was telling me this guy is going to play a big part in this game. And that guy is going to play a big part in that game. None of those guys.
Mm-hmm. Richie James led the Giants in receiving with 51 yards, and he's a gadget player.
And he's a punt returner.
Yep.
So we look at the aspects of the game, and we can go back and forth on what Joe Schoen said after the Giants lost and at the press conferences on Monday and talking to the press. All I could say about the New York Giants right now is that they have a big offseason. They have an offseason where they're going to have to make huge decisions. And Daniel Jones is coming back. You heard him. They're going to franchise him. They're going to give him $30.5 million, and they'll probably re-sign him to a 3-year, $75 million, $80 million extension, guaranteeing him probably $60 million. That's what I think they're going to give Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley is probably not coming back. So their number one gadget player, their number one offensive option is going to be gone. So where do they go into the offseason? Are they going to bring in a Jacobs? But if they're not going to pay their own guy, why would they pay Jacobs?
Right.
They're going to go into the draft. They're not going to draft a running back in the first round like they did with Saquon.
No.
So you're going to go into the second or third round where you're going to be looking for a running back that might not be the guy moving forward. And I have a feeling they're going to bring a veteran running back in. They're probably going to. Just like, obviously, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins do this every single year.
Yep.
They draft a running back, and they bring in a veteran. They do it all the time.
Yep. And then they'll let the running back go after one good year, and
Yep.
then they'll trade him. Kenyon Drake did that with Jay Ajayi. They did that with.
They do it all the
recently.
time.
Yeah, they do it all the time.
They do it all the time. And the Giants, I don't know how Joe Schoen wants to run this team.
Yeah.
Because this is really his first full offseason where you're going to see what he is going to do, how he's going to mix up free agency, how is he going to mix up some of the free, the draft picks that he is going to bring to this team. He had his first draft last year, but the same thing with Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas didn't have his first full season after the Mekhi Becton the draft. Mekhi Becton's draft was when he was signed in the middle of the season, when the Jets brought him in with Adam Gase in the middle of the season. Right. Then his first draft was with Adam Gase, with Mekhi Becton. Obviously, the players, that was the guy that they his first draft pick. And then the second year was his first full year, and that was when Adam Gase was gone.
Mm-hmm. And that was the first full year, kind of, too, that Douglas had control with the money, too.
Yes.
Whereas Adam Gase, or not Adam Gase, whereas Mike McCagnon left the Jets very cash strapped. So Joe Douglas was very limited that first year with free agency. Same kind of thing with Shane this year. A lot of the bad contracts that Gettleman had in his free agency tenure, they were able to get rid of most of them, which was good, but still left with the Kenny Golladay one, still stuck with the Leonard Williams one. Hopefully he can play through that, because that's going to be hard to trade as well. So, yeah, this is his first full year where now the $57 million, what will he do in free agency?
I think when you look at the big picture and where the Giants are going into the offseason, there's a lot of what ifs and a lot of arguments that the Giant fans are making right now on social media. Some Giant fans don't want Daniel Jones. Some fans just want Saquon Barkley. We can draft a quarterback next year. We'll bring in a veteran quarterback. Let Daniel Jones go. Peter King said some interesting things in some of the stories that he wrote after the Giants got knocked out on Saturday. And some of the things that really stand out, what Peter King is saying, is that the Giants' decision really is they're going to definitely bring Daniel Jones back, but they're unsure with Saquon Barkley.
Right. And it seems like the priority is to bring back Dexter Lawrence over Saquon Barkley as well.
Well, Dexter Lawrence is their leader, their
Right.
defensive prowess guy down the middle, defensive tackle. You can't find those guys.
Right.
They don't grow on trees. Running backs you could find in the third and fourth round.
Mm-hmm. Defensive tackles are a huge position when it comes to analytically speaking, too. That's why a lot of them have been drafted earlier, too, than we've ever seen before. And look at the Jets with Quinn Williams, same kind of example. He went third overall. Years ago, you wouldn't even think of that. He had the Ndamukong Suh, Gerald McCoy draft that was like that, but that was a rarity at that time. Now, because of the way that quarterbacks can move, sometimes the interior rush getting them quickly really throws them off their game just as much, if not more, than a lot of those edge rushers. So it seems like Daniel Jones will be the first priority, then Dexter Lawrence to be able to give. And if they don't franchise tag Daniel Jones, then maybe Saquon gets the franchise tag later on, which will be at $12 million. But if they do franchise him, obviously you can't franchise tag two players. So that would be the next thing they have to deal with if they let him go.
And what throws me off about the Eagles game more than anything was that they knew that Jalen Hurts wasn't 100%. And even though he looked like he was 100%, he wasn't 100%. His shoulder, he's been injured really the last 5 games of the season. He didn't play any games until the final game of the season. He needed to play in that game because they needed to win, because they needed to have home field advantage. And they definitely needed it, because look, they're playing San Francisco in the NFC title game. If they were going to have to fly all the way to out west to play in San Francisco, to me, there would be no chance of the Eagles winning that game. The Eagles are a better home team than they are away team. Now, it doesn't show this year, but again, because they are really equaled out with their record.
Right.
But to me, what I saw this year from the Eagles was something that we haven't seen from the Eagles team, even when they won the Super Bowl, when they beat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. What I see is just complete dominance by the Eagles this year. They dominated in almost every single game Jalen Hurts played in. And I remember in the beginning of the season, when all the Eagle fans wanted to get rid of Jalen Hurts, that they have 2 first-round draft picks, they can move up and get Bryce Young, they can move up and get C.J. Stroud, they can move up and get whoever they want.
Mm-hmm. Including our friend Brian Drake, the first time we had him on the show, too. He was very down on Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely. And you look at what Jalen Hurts did this year. Not only does the guy squat 600 pounds, probably the strongest quarterback in the NFL. And I'm not just saying that. How many quarterbacks do you know that could squat 600 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay? That's one. Number 2, this man is a dog. Okay? This guy will go out there and give it his all. He will get on the field. He will do everything the coach wants him to do. He will run every single play, and he'll run it 100%. He won't sit back. You won't see him tail back. And we've seen quarterbacks do this. I'm a Jet fan. How many quarterbacks did we see this year? Joe Flacco. Okay? Every time Joe Flacco came into the game for Zach Wilson or Mike White, the guy looked old. He looked like he shouldn't be on the field. Then you look at Mike White. Mike White, he was strong. He looked like he wanted to play. He looked like he could get on the field and do the things that he could do. and then he'll go against a team that's just flat out just better than he is defensively and completely laying up a lousy goose egg. And then Zach Wilson. We all know what Zach Wilson did this year. Okay? We all know what he did. And I bring up the Jets because it's so funny. I am a Jet fan, but I root on the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And everybody says, why do you root on the Eagles? Because the whole story with Donovan McNabb. I'm a huge Donovan McNabb fan. And I've watched the Eagles all season long. And they've had so many injuries defensively and even offensively. And they have not only a great bench, they understand how to maneuver players and bring players in when they're strong and when they're weak. And that's the difference. I think that's the difference between the Eagles going into this game against San Francisco. And we will get into that tomorrow. I think the Eagles are just flat out all around better than the San Francisco 49ers, offensively and defensively. Now, obviously, the defense of the San Francisco 49ers is ranked number 1 in the league. So how could you say that the Eagles are better? The Eagles weren't healthy all year. Jordan Davis was not healthy all year. That secondary, they lost Johnson in the second half of the season. He didn't come back until the final game of the season. Actually, he just came back in the playoff game.
Right.
They weren't 100% healthy. So now at full strength, do I think the Eagles can outduel defensively on the defensive side of the ball, the San Francisco 49ers? I don't trust Brock Purdy. So, yeah, I absolutely believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be favored in this game. But I'm not even talking about that right now. But before we go to our first guest, I will say this. If you're a Giant fan, and this is a question, we're going to post this up on Twitter tonight after the show. If you're a Giant fan out there right now, and you had a choice between Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, and you had a choice to give one or the other the contract, who would you give the contract to one, and how much would you give the contract to that player when it comes down to it? When we come back, we'll be talking to former Jaguars, Bills, kicker, and president of Pro Form Kicking Academy, Mike Hollis, here on the Sports Loudmouths.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, we were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Hey, guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
631-672-3108 is the number you can call, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouths. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy, Petey. Remember, you can listen to our show every single Wednesday and Thursday. As everybody knows, Wednesday at 7 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Check out our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the country, including our show and all the different shows that we have from Cincinnati, Florida, California, all over the country. So definitely check out all the shows. They're live. They're not podcasts, but if you miss them, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts and listen to all the replays of the show. Oh, man, we haven't had this guy on for a little while, but we have him on again. We are now talking to former Jaguars and Bills kicker and president of Pro Form Kicking Academy, Mr. Mike Hollis. Mike, what's up, man?
What's going on?
You're looking good, man. You look healthy. You looked healthy last time. I'm not going to take shots at you.
Was I fat last time or what?
No, you look good, man. You look really, really good. How are you feeling, man? How's your family doing from COVID and everything since the last time we spoke?
Man, I'm in Florida. Everybody's cool around here. You know, we didn't have all that lockdown crap. You know, everyone just enjoyed life. We dealt with it. You know.
Now, obviously, you've been really working with your kicking academy. How's that going? Obviously, over the last couple of years, you've been pushing and added so many different objectives of where kicking is going in the NFL and where it's going in college and high school football. How's your academy doing since the last time we spoke?
You know, it's good. You know, we get guys that come in and you know, the frustrating thing for me as a coach is to, you know, have guys come in from, you know, different parts of the country who may work with other coaches. And even more frustrating is there's guys that come in that work with other coaches that I've actually worked with before, as you know, as a coach for them as well. And you know, the things that they're telling me that these coaches are telling them to do are not good stuff. And again, it's that there's kind of that common, you know, thread of, you know, you think of golfers around the, you know, golf's been around a million years, and you know they've kind of these professional golfers have found the best way of hitting a golf ball. And most of the pros, they have a certain foundation that they kind of follow. And you know, with kicking, it's different. There's still, to this day, there's still a lot of kickers that do different stuff. And you bring up Brett Maher, and you know, you look at the way he kicks, and there's a lot of room for error the way he kicks. And you know, my biggest example is of all 4 kicks in the game previously that he missed, you know, in a row before he made his 5th. He's doing the same thing every single time. He's just, you know, happened to make that 5th one go through, but he's swinging hard to the left, and the balls, 3 of the 4 went to the right. Like, how is that working out for you guys? You know, you guys continue, and I say you guys in general because that's a lot of kickers out there who keep doing the same things over and over and over again. Is they swing really, really aggressively laterally, and it makes sense. I get it. You know, you're as a right-footed kicker, you're off to the left of the ball, and as you stand there waiting for the ball to be snapped and, you know, very ready to kick it, the target is left of you. So naturally you feel like you have to do something left, and everyone wants to swing left. And I tell my guys, hey, listen, you have 3 different options when you swing left. You can miss it right. Clearly we saw that. You can make it, or you can obviously miss it left. The things that I do, if you eliminate that lateral swing and you do a couple other, you know, technical things, you're never going to miss left again in your life. You'll probably, you know, either make it, you know, straight down the middle. Obviously, there's things you have to do that. But if you're gonna miss it, you might miss it a little bit right. But again, as a right-footed kicker, if I'm missing it to the right, I can adjust. I can learn from that. I can make some adjustments and make the next kick. When I'm swinging left and the ball's going right, like, what am I supposed to do to fix the next kick? Like, you know, basically the foot's open. And again, I'm ranting and raving about this because it's very frustrating to see that these kickers are still doing the same things. And, you know, only the best ones that can do these lateral swings are the ones playing in the NFL. And you think about it, why isn't there 1,000 kickers out there right now that are just as good as the NFL guys right now, just waiting in line to get into a team and play? There's not. And any team, you know, the times when these teams are looking for other kickers to replace the guys they have on their team that apparently are not doing very good, the kickers they bring in sometimes aren't that great either, and they have to fire them and find somebody else. And they go through this carousel of kickers until they find someone who's actually reliable. And it's all about technique, man. And the ways I teach and the things that I teach are very good because they help with the mental side of it too. Because what I do is I transition a guy into thinking about steering the football through an upright or trying to aim really, really aggressively. And just, you know, your aiming should be in your lineup. And then the mechanics that you do between the beginning of your approach and the kick of the ball itself, and obviously the follow through, all of that stuff there, and all the mechanics, that's what makes the ball go through the uprights, not your athleticism in trying to make the kick go a certain direction. That whole concept of aim small, miss small, I can't stand it because guys put, you know, too much pressure on themselves, and they're trying really hard to steer a football. And that's the worst thing you can do, especially if you're just trying to, you know, athletically do it. Your athleticism will only last so long. So it's very frustrating, but my guys are good. You know, I got Purdue just finished Mitchell Finneran just finished up at Purdue as the most accurate kicker in Purdue history. In just the 2 years he was there, and he, broke a couple other records as well. So he's done real well, and he's, hopefully trying to take it on to the next level.
So, in reference to Maher, going back to that, I saw a tweet from Phil Dawson that was saying that that the kicking end of it is still more technique based and not mentally too, because we discussed like what's the most individually mentally grueling position in terms of pressure. So do you think that more? Do you think it's still more that oriented rather than the mental side of it, where we've seen kickers definitely crumble at certain points?
Well, the guys who crumble, and again, the Brett Mahers of the world, and I feel bad. I mean, I'm not making fun of him. I'm not trying to, he's very good. He's very good at what he did and he's done. I think just mentally, when you don't have great technique and you're doing things that I think have a lot of room for error, what is your basic foundation? What is after his first miss in that game a couple weeks ago? What did he think? What was going through his mind mentally? I don't know. In my mind, mentally, I'd be like, okay, well, I probably opened up my foot, or maybe I just, okay, I shouldn't do that on the next one. Well, guess what? The next one, he did the same thing. It's almost identical. The 3 in a row. Well, the 3, yeah, actually, the two that he missed originally went to the right, then he missed one to the left, then he missed one to the right again. So again, there's a lot, and then the one in the game recently, that first extra point attempt or field goal attempt, I can't remember what it was, but that was an ugly kick. And I'm like, man, how do you have to go back to the basics and just learn, to trust the basics. When you don't trust what you're doing is when you get yourself in a hole and you have no idea how to get out of it.
We are talking to former Jaguars, Bills kicker and president of Proform Kicking Academy, Mike Hollis. Mike, we've watched the game for years, and you played in the game for so many years, and you watch some of the growth of some of these kickers in the league, and a lot of them stand out. Adam Vinatieri being one of the greatest kickers of all time. And then you talk about guys like Brett Maher. When you look at the game as a complete transition of what we saw in the game that you played in, now the game, are the kickers better now, can kick longer now than they did in the time that you played?
Absolutely. I think that, the physical training for all athletes in general has has grown. There's a lot more attention, now with businesses who are providing speed and agility sort of training, things like that. And speed and agility for kickers, I think, is wonderful. Now, weight room, not so much, but speed and agility, yes, because that's what you do when you kick a football. It's very, very quick, fast twitch sort of muscle fibers that are activating at 1.2 seconds or 1.3 seconds, whatever. But my point is that when you get into that situation where you're kicking well, and these guys are kicking really well, and here's one of the biggest differences that people don't realize is that now they have snappers that are incredibly good. When I played the first 7 years of my career, we didn't have a specific snapper. It was just whoever could snap on the team. Now every single team has a snapper, right? And these guys are not just snapping pretty good; they're snapping lights out good, right? Even to the point where they're getting the laces forward, and these holders don't have to do much. Brian Barker was my holder for 6 of my 7 years here in Jacksonville, and I got to tell you, he saved a lot of snaps. We had Dave Lydell as our snapper for many years, and he wasn't the greatest. If he was sitting here writing with us right now, he'd admit it too. Like, I was all right. I wasn't real great, but my point is that my holder was able to put the ball down, and I had developed a good trust in him. But these guys these days, plus the other thing I'll add on to that is the field conditions. Obviously progressively over time, they've gotten a lot better. Now they're doing a lot of field turf, and even the regular, grass fields are pretty good. Not to say that there could be holes and divots. Clearly you can, but there's a lot better field surfaces out there these days, and a lot better snappers and holders, which holders don't really have to do a whole lot other than catch the ball and put it down. They don't even have to move the laces, but I remember even Evan McPherson had a couple kicks that weren't that great, and the snap was bad and the whole. Well, not really. They weren't that bad compared to what I had to deal with. But that's the thing, is it surprised him. Like, that snap was bad. And in the middle of a kick, he kind of, maybe panicked a little bit. But I was used to surprises. All these snaps were all over the place. I didn't know what I was going to get half the time. So I just trusted Brian as my holder. And he told me that. One of the first things he said is, listen, I'm going to get the ball down for you. You finish the kick. You do your job. I'll do mine. And I promise you, I'll get it down for you. And you'll know if I won't. I'll call it, fire early or whatever the case may be if you can't get it down. And there's been many cases in games that I played back in the day that I probably should not have kicked the ball when I did. And I've made 9 out of 10 of those, or 90% of those.
So we were talking about the Jaguars. They had, outside of my New York Giants, my second favorite playoff win of the year so far. They came back down 27-0 against the Chargers. So what was it like seeing that game, and also the mindset in the city of Jacksonville for this up and coming Jaguars team that made the playoffs this year and won a playoff game?
I think that obviously there's a lot of hype here in Jacksonville, and it was a bummer we lost last weekend, but our fans are definitely supportive of the team. Doug Peterson has done a fabulous job. I think the players are rallying around him. I think that's one of the key factors. And the past coaches we've had, I'm sure were great guys personally, but Doug just has something about him that is just he's good for winning, and he knows what it takes. He's got a Super Bowl ring on his hands. So I think that the city here is kind of remembering the days back when I was playing, and all those playoff runs, I should say, many of them, but the two AFC Championship games that we were in, 96 and 99. Those teams when we were back in the late 90s, and we were good. 2000 was even pretty good. And so I think we're getting back to that level of play, and we're getting some playmakers. And that's what we've been missing for a very long time is guys, receivers specifically, would catch the ball. Now we got guys who are catching the ball. And it's very, very frustrating as a fan now. Obviously I'm a fan, but to see, plays that should have no problems, running, and the receiver just drops the ball. And we didn't have those kind of guys since, Jimmy and Keenan, back in the day. But nowadays we do. We have guys that catch the ball, guys that run the ball, and quarterback clearly can make some plays. And he's got some legs on him too, man. That guy can run, and I think they should use him more. But obviously you want to keep him safe from injury, of course. But they're doing great.
You played with a great quarterback, and a quarterback that obviously took you all the way through the playoffs, almost got you into a Super Bowl. You look at Trevor Lawrence and you see what Trevor Lawrence is doing this year. You were just mentioning he has great legs. He has a great arm. He really took a step forward from what he did last year, maybe because it was Urban Meyer coaching him. And now you have actually a competent coach, and Doug Peterson actually knows what he's doing offensively with quarterbacks. We know with Doug Peterson, he worked with Patrick Mahomes. He's worked with different quarterbacks over the last couple of years and helped them grow. When you look at Trevor Lawrence, do you think that this kid could become an elite quarterback, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL?
Absolutely. I mean, just look at his physical stature. Everything about him physically is that, he's going through a learning curve. Obviously, the NFL is much faster than college, even Clemson. And, obviously he played on some very, very good teams with a lot of talented guys and played against a lot of talented guys, but the NFL is just that much better. Different plays, different schemes, different strategies, things like that. And it makes decision-making a little bit more difficult for guys who haven't had the experience. He's got 2 years of experience now. And last year, of course, this recent season, you could tell how much he's improved, mentally. And, there was games, first halves, for some reason, the Jaguars haven't really played well, but they make some great adjustments, and Trevor does as well. But again, that's just part of learning. It's learning the game. It's learning, how fast these guys and how impressive the defenses are that they're playing against. And, he's just got to, have a little bit more experience under his belt and just know what to do in certain situations. And I'm telling you, as a player, obviously I'm a kicker. I didn't have that many times when I had to make a split-second decision. But for the most part, these guys have to make decisions very, very quickly. And, at first when they're making these decisions and throwing the ball poorly and maybe throwing picks here and there, when they go back and learn from those and they understand why, the ball was intercepted, they will learn and hopefully not do that same sort of mistake again. But it's all about getting some experience and, being on a team like the Jaguars and having an offense like we do and a defense, clearly. Good things will happen with quarterback like that for sure.
So we've seen the greatness, especially the last couple of years, but throughout his whole career of Justin Tucker, and now a lot of people believing that he could be the greatest kicker of all time, even against your Jaguars, even though he missed the kick, like he was just short from 69 yards, they tried to win the game. So where do you stand on that? Do you think he could be the greatest kicker of all time if he isn't already?
Yeah, definitely. Him and Adam Vinatieri are up there at the top of the list. Adam, of course, he's the GOAT. Until Tucker retires, we won't ever know how good he will be, how good he is, or eventually will be, of course. But yeah, definitely, he's definitely an incredible kicker. Mechanically, I couldn't do what he does when he kicks the ball, the way he kicks it. But I like his mentality, man. He's talking about that the kicking process just comes, at that point, he's just a mechanical kicker. He kind of understands the same kind of stuff I do, clearly. And I love that fact that he just relies on his mechanics, the things that he's done day in and day out, kicking a million footballs like I did back in the day, of course. And you develop that trust, and again, just goes back to that experience thing I just talked about with Trevor Lawrence. Is you get in there and you have this experience of kicking a ball the way you do it, and he's gotten really good at his certain mechanics that he does, and again, when you throw the mental side of it in there, I'm telling you, it has a lot to do with how much you trust yourself. I think the guys who struggle more mentally are the ones that don't quite trust what they're doing. When you get to a position where you're so good like Tucker is, and Vinatieri was, clearly, you could tell when he kicked the ball, every kick was the same. It was a very repetitious sort of thing. He didn't try to any harder on game-winning kicks. And again, goes down to that mental side. And I've done, football seasons, towards the end of the football seasons, I do a lot of podcasts, a lot of interviews, and I always talk about the same stuff as far as just trusting the form. And the more experience you have with it, just rely on your mechanics to do the work. And again, if you don't have those mechanics, what are you going to trust? What are you going to work on? And not try any harder. That's the biggest thing, because when you get into the playoffs, oh, well, gosh, it's so much different. And no, it's not. Not for me, not for kickers, clearly, but it's the same thing. And, when you're having a game-winning kick in the playoffs, Riley Patterson, our current kicker for the Jaguars, that game-winning kick that he had, people, wow, how did he do it? What was going through his mind? I don't really know what was going through his mind specifically, but I know what would go through my mind. Like, why would I treat this kick any different than the first kick of the game? It's the same operation. Yeah, the defense is going to come a little harder, but yes, our protection is going to be that much harder because they know that they're going to come and they're going to block better. So everyone's doing their job, a little bit better. But as a kicker, mechanics and the whole operation of the kick itself, there's no reason I would have to try harder to make an important kick. It's 3 points on the board. It just depends on the time of the game. Why would it matter what time of the game? And obviously the result of the game, obviously the 3 seconds left, and you make this kick, you win the game. I understand that that's the hardest part about dealing with kicking, game-winning kick is that consequence, whether you're going to make it or not. If you can block that out and just treat it like, dumb down the process, simplify the process, and treat it like every other kick that you've always done, why would you change it up? Why would you have to try harder? Why would you do anything different? You've done the same thing over and over again. Just trust the same thing, and good things will happen.
We are talking to former Jaguars and Bills kicker and president of ProForm Kicking Academy, Mike Hollis. You mentioned Adam Vinatieri. I think he's the GOAT because he has done it under the most pressure. He's done it in big games. He's won Super Bowls by kicking field goals. We haven't really seen Justin Tucker do that. So I think when you look at the big picture, I think Vinatieri is the GOAT. But also, Sebastian Janikowski was a great kicker, too. A guy that was drafted in the first round, if everybody remembers, by the Oakland Raiders. And everybody said, how could you draft a kicker in the first round? And you look at Sebastian Janikowski, he had a great career and probably is a Hall of Famer. When you look at Adam Vinatieri, Justin Tucker, and Sebastian Janikowski, what do you see in the difference of the way all three of them kick?
Well, there's a big difference in all three of them, honestly. Adam is was very good at doing the same thing over again. Justin Tucker does the same thing over again. The mechanics of both of those guys, it wouldn't be things, Adam he had a little bit of a punch. He didn't quite follow through, but hey, that was his style and he made kicks. Justin Tucker plants really close to the ball. I could never do that and get away with it, at least. I'd be missing kicks left and right. And I know that Sebastian Janikowski, watching him over his career, athletically, when he was younger, he was just a stud athlete. He's from Jacksonville, and I've seen him firsthand. I've seen him play, pick up basketball and soccer and things like that. And the dude just can do anything he wants. He's just a big guy, incredibly athletic. And early on in his career, he wasn't mechanically very solid, and he was just walking back at an angle when his lineup, during his lineup. And I noticed towards the end of his career, he changed things and he got a little bit better. His form is getting a little bit better. And I think, when guys get older and they lose a little bit of athletic ability and they're trying to find, ways to maintain their status in the NFL and as a great kicker, when you lose athletic ability and your form starts kind of, going south a little bit, you kind of have to watch out for things and kind of figure things out as you go. And that's really what the definition of a professional is really finding ways to make things, happen, regardless of your athletic ability. Obviously you're getting older and you may not be as strong as you used to be, but I think he made some great adjustments later in his career and started kicking really well. And he had a fabulous career as well, for sure. And strong, really strong. That guy was amazingly strong.
So you also played for the Bills as well, and obviously the tragedy that happened in Buffalo with Damar Hamlin, and luckily he's doing better now, and he was able to attend the game. So what was your reaction seeing that? It's a freak accident that, again, has only happened once on the field before.
Yeah, I have maybe a political opinion about that. I'm not sure how deep I want to get involved in that because I think there's something more to it. If you look at the stats of athletes falling, to that kind of thing on the field for the last, 40 years, it's like 1,000 and something. And then this last year, there's over 1,000 in 1 year. There's something up with that, I think. And honestly, he got boosted with the vaccine just a couple of weeks prior to that game, or maybe even a week prior to that game. And again, that's just my opinion. I'm not going to get too political here and all that, but I've just done a lot of research, man. I'm telling you, there's something to it. But it didn't look like a hit that you would. There's people in Jacksonville. I've heard stories about kids, playing lacrosse, getting hit in the chest with a lacrosse ball, which clearly would rupture or really hurt a kid in his chest and maybe affect his heart, clearly, because that's right there in the chest. Coming up that fast with that, those balls are real heavy and they can do some damage. So I can understand that, but just watching that play, it didn't look that bad. So again, I don't have a great opinion about that. Was it freak? I don't know. I'm glad he's okay, clearly, and that affected a lot of people, and that's probably the best thing that came out of this. Obviously, him surviving that, but one of the best things clearly that would happen is that people realize that football is not life. It brought a lot of people together. Clearly, the Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals, the whole city of Cincinnati. Look at how the fans reacted to that. And so again, that was a huge light in this whole negative situation where it brought a lot of people together, and we can all realize that we're all human. We're all just people out there. We're entertainers, on the field, entertaining. We're no better than anybody else in the world. And things happen to us just like they would happen to the normal average person. So, I'm glad things are okay with him now. And I think the best part about it is how much it kind of brought light to, us as players and just, people in general and just loving each other. Like we all got to love our neighbors, man. There's a lot of hate in the world right now. I promise you, man. And it's sad, but I'm glad that, that kind of outcome, I personally felt like it brought a lot of people together in NFL teams and players.
Mike, before we let you go, I want you to kind of explain to some of the young fans that are interested in kicking and learning how to kick, how they can find you on social media, how they can find you to go to your kicking academy.
Well, all my social media handles are Proform Kicking. I've been doing this for 17, 20 years, something like that. Just, a little bit prior to when I opened up my academy, I was coaching kids as well. But, the thing, I would love to work with kids, and I have a different approach. And I think that should, at least raise some eyebrows. Like, wow, and again, I'm 50 years old. I played a professional football game, 6 months ago, back in June. I played a game for the Jacksonville Sharks. I played a game at the pro level and in a National Arena League football game at the age of 50. And I know it's not because of my athletic ability and my size, clearly, because I'm not either. I'm old. I'm 50 years old. I'm in shape. I stay in shape. And I'm
40. I'm 40. Now you're telling me I'm ancient. You're old. I'm ancient.
Mike, don't worry. According to him, everyone younger than him is a baby. So,
in the sense of professional sports, I'm old, right? But my point was saying that, and I also demonstrate for these kids, and I feel like I have to, because a lot of things that I'm talking about, especially like the first day a kid would come in, I kind of throw up a lot of information on them. I say, hey, I hope you came with an open mind, because I'm going to say things that will be like you probably never heard of before. But the good news is I'm going to actually demonstrate for you, and I'm going to show you, because I know that some of the things that I'm going to tell you that's going to happen, you're not going to believe what's going to happen with the ball if I do a certain thing and certain things with my mechanics. And I'm able to show them and prove to them I can do a certain thing and the ball will go a certain direction. And even though they don't believe it, I'm able to show it. So again, I love seeing that surprised look on their faces. And then, fast forward, 6 months down the road, however long it takes them to really get this stuff down, maybe a couple months, who knows? But when they finally have that first aha moment, when they kick that ball, like, oh my gosh, I know what you mean now. And of course, it was a good kick, and that smile on their face, like, yeah, I know what you mean now. This is exactly what I'm supposed to feel, and that's a great feeling as a coach, and that's really why I do this. It's awesome to see our guys do real well, and especially the ones that really, really take down the technique and really trust it and work hard on it. Those are our best. I've got a kid that I work with 4 days a week. 3 of the 4 days are before his school. We're kicking in the dark until the sun comes up. And this kid is extremely dedicated. And he's been working with me, one of the longest kids I've had in a couple of years, of course, but he's very consistent 3 to 4 times a week. And he's one of the best kids I've had ever. And so I think that there's a lot of bright futures for this kid as well. And those guys who take it serious and love it and enjoy it, those are going to be the best clients we have. And it's all about, getting that college scholarship and moving on to the next level and hopefully getting the guys in the NFL. And that would be a dream, for me to have all kinds of kickers in the NFL.
Well, keep up the good work. We really appreciate all the time that you give us. Every time you come on the show, it's amazing. And every single time we get distinct answers when it comes to kicking, pro football, and really from your career. We learn a lot of new things. This is the 3rd time you've been on the show, and you've been absolutely fantastic. So keep up the good work, and we'll get you on soon, man.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
As everybody knows, we were talking to former Jaguars, Bills kicker and president of Proform Kicking Academy, Mike Hollis. Fantastic. Great guy.
By the way, Rob will be coming on more around 9 o'clock. He has a
Awesome.
meeting to get out of right now, and he's just driving back home now.
Rob's a busy guy. Rob Carpenter, ex-NFL player, played for the Patriots, played for the Jets, played for the Philadelphia Eagles, played for everybody. I mean, if you really look at some of these guys, even Mike played for a lot of different teams.
Yes.
He had a really good career. If you go up and down some of the different rosters that these guys played for, they were pretty good rosters. So even the Jacksonville Jaguars, they went almost all the way. They went to the AFC title.
They went to the AFC title
with
game
Mark
twice.
Brunell.
And they were also at the time when the Jaguars came into the league in 1995, they actually had the highest attendance rate in the league. That's how many people loved the Jaguars when they first came in 1995.
What happened now?
And yeah, since then the dysfunction has hurt them for a while, probably until just this year. They had a really bad stretch of it. The mid 2000s, they were very good for a little bit. They were just in the same division as Colts, so they didn't really get as much love when it came to that. And as a result, I don't think they ever won the division, but they had some good years as a wild card team. But yeah, since then they had a pretty bad stretch. Then 2017 came along, they got screwed out of a Super Bowl, and now all of a sudden they've had to work their way back from that.
Speaking of being screwed from a Super Bowl, the Buffalo Bill fans are all over social media right now. Every single one of them taking shots at Eli Apple because he obviously took shots at the Buffalo Bills after the game, saying, Cancun on me. So
Yeah.
I it's so interesting, and we'll get into the Buffalo Bills game because there was so many things that could have happened in this game, and so many turn of events in this game that probably cost the Buffalo Bills a win. Now, the Bengals outplayed the Buffalo Bills throughout the game. It really, in the first half, there was no chance the Buffalo Bills looked like they have. The Buffalo Bills couldn't run the ball. Josh Allen couldn't throw the ball. And defensively, they looked horrible. They really did. You have one of the best defensive schemes in the NFL. It's been one of the best defensive schemes for the last 3 years. And it couldn't stop Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow is not one of those fancy quarterbacks. He's not. He is a boring, pocket present quarterback that likes to stand in the pocket and make throws. He's a smart quarterback. He sees the field for what it is. He's got awesome wide receivers in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. He has all these guys, all these weapons. And then he's got Hurst, who, obviously a guy that the Baltimore Ravens probably wish they never got rid of. Mm-hmm. He goes to the Cincinnati Bengals and had a fantastic year, over 700 yards, and did the things that he did on the field. When you have weapons like that, and you have Joe Mixon, and you have Piron, you have all these different guys that can do so many things offensively. And by the way, the offensive line, which we thought was going to be a weakness in the game, was a strength. Now we sit here and we could go back and forth on the situation that happened on the sideline with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Okay. Now, Stephon Diggs, he had a little bit of an outburst on the sideline. Josh Allen, he didn't really say what he said on the sideline back to Stephon Diggs, but I'm sure it wasn't something that's going to greet him and make him happy. Okay. But when you're playing a big game, you're playing in front of your home fans, Damar Hamlin, his family, in a snowy, disgusting day with, 20 degrees or 19-degree weather. You're not going, and you're not winning, and you're not beating the team that everybody thought you were going to win, and everybody was talking about playing that playing game in Atlanta with the Kansas City Chiefs. And by the way, Joe Burrow had something to say after the game.
A lot of Bengals players had a lot to say. Go get those refunds, everybody. Zach Taylor was funny too in his press conference. He was like, "Oh, we're so sorry we know all the planning process we had to make, and we're sorry we had to throw a monkey wrench into it or something like that." He was funny as well.
And I respect Stephon Diggs. I really do. I respect him because he's got that, that push, that love and affection for the game of football. And it drives a lot of players. It makes people love him. He really does. He embarrassed himself after the game. One, he stormed right off the field. He didn't even handshake anybody. He stormed off the field. He got dressed, and he walked out before the press could speak to him. And as a professional football player, one of the things that you get paid for, one of the things that you're supposed to do after the game is confront the press and talk about the game. And speak about the game. Even if you liked it, you hated it, it doesn't matter. You go out there and you speak. And he embarrassed himself. And the whole Josh Allen thing, Josh Allen said something very interesting. He said, when he spoke to the press, he says, he's a fierce competitor. That's pretty much what he said. He wants the ball. He wants to win. That's any wide receiver in this league. You don't think Jamar Chase wants to win? He wants the ball? You don't think T. Higgins wanted the ball? You don't think that Gabriel Davis wanted the ball? You don't think that Knox wanted the ball? Jamar Chase is a guy that has how many outbursts has Jamar Chase had this year before he got hurt and then after coming back? This is a guy that expects the ball every single time. Expects 100 catches every single year. Stephon Diggs, since he's gone to the Buffalo Bills, has had 100 catches a year. Has over 1,200 yards every single year. Almost 10 touchdowns every single year. Josh Allen gives him the ball. Josh Allen was feeding him the ball. It's windy. It's snowy. It's slippery. How about running a good route? Stephon Diggs did not play well. That Buffalo Bills team did not play well. That pass rush was inconsistent. And I don't want to hear it because they had 3 starting offensive linemen. The Bengals had 3 starting offensive linemen that were out. And they still shut down one of the best front sevens in football. Now, I don't think they were outcoached. I don't. Because we all know, everybody knows what we think about Zach on this show. But the Buffalo Bills over the last couple, and maybe they're jinxed. Because in the 90s, they went to 4 Super Bowls in a row, and they couldn't get over the hump.
The curse of Scott Norwood.
Okay? They couldn't get over the hump. Jim Kelly could never get over the hump. Jim Kelly is probably one of the greatest quarterbacks that never won. Dan Marino, another one.
Yeah, he's probably the best, for sure.
And now you're looking at Josh Allen, and you look at the Buffalo Bills are in the same predicament as the New York Jets. They really are. Because there are 2 teams fighting to win a Super Bowl. And the last 2 years, going into the season, the Buffalo Bills were the favorites of going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl this year. And then Josh Allen getting hurt in the Jets game, in the first Jets game. He started to play bad. Then he lost against Minnesota. And then everything started to fall apart for the Buffalo Bills. And they had to catch up. They winded up winning the division. They lost Damar Hamlin. Thank God he survived. And then go into the playoffs. They were kind of like crawling into the playoffs. The Bengals were the hottest team in football. They haven't lost since Halloween. And you saw the difference of Joe Burrow and the confidence of Joe Burrow in the game and Josh Allen. They both played in the snow. They both played in the cold. It just looked like Joe Burrow wanted it more. Or Joe Burrow's game plan was better than Josh Allen's game plan with the Buffalo Bills. And I'll tell you this. For anybody that watched this game, defensively and offensively, the Bengals dominated defensively too. Josh Allen was hit like 6 times in the second half of the game. And as soon as they fell behind in the third quarter, when they gave up that early, 3 points?
Mm-hmm.
The game was over. There was no way the Buffalo Bills were going to come back in the game. They were up by 10.5. Then the Bengals got 3 points on their first drive in the third quarter, and then the game was over. And that was the difference of the game. And we could go up and down from play to play, quarter to quarter, player to player. The Bengals showed up. Joe Burrow showed up. The running game, by the way, Joe Mixon was a beast.
Yeah.
He was an absolute beast in the game. And in the second half, they said, you know what? We'll sit Joe out. We'll give a little ball to P. Ryan. And P. Ryan was running all over them too.
Mm-hmm. P. Ryan, the Chief Killer, now also extended that to the Bills.
I mean, they could not stop the Bengals running game. They had no chance of stopping the running game. And that was the difference, because as soon as the Bengals had the confidence they can run the ball against this defense, they didn't have to throw the ball.
Which they should have had all season, but they didn't. They were 29th in rushing yards all season. The Mixon had his worst year of his career. We were talking about it earlier with the running back contracts. Guys that have regressed from their running back contracts. Mixon only really got it going later in the season, but he was great in the playoffs last year and proves it again. By the way, we have a rare call from Snug.
Snug, what's up, bro?
Oh, my goodness. First of all, I want to shout out to Kenny for having the best show. Love your show, Kenny. Don't be discouraged, bud. You hang in there and keep calling. Speedy, you get in there and you support that show. He needs a producer. He needs a little help making it happen, but you guys can do it. Okay. Second of all, that game was over on the first drive. Mm-hmm. It was done. Because one of the biggest things was the snow, and the Bengals took advantage of it. Offenses beat defenses in the snow. Defenses have to react and pivot and shift. Offenses know where they're going. That offensive line of the Bengals, I don't care. I mean, they were fired up and ready to go because they were ready to run the ball. It's easy to get guys to run the ball. Any offensive lineman in the league can line up and run the ball. The hard part is getting them to pass protect. Joe Burrow got the pass protection he needed in the first half because he completed 18 passes. In the second half, he only completed 5 passes. So he didn't need the protection because, to your point, Joe Mixon and P. Ryan ran wild on them. And I think that you're going to see something very similar coming up next week. I know you're not previewing the show.
But we'll do that tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow.
Obviously. But I have to ask, you mentioned fancy quarterbacks. Who are the fancy quarterbacks? Because Josh Allen and Joe Burrow seem pretty fancy to me.
Well,
but you said that Joe Burrow doesn't do the fancy things.
No, he's one of those boring quarterbacks. And I'm not taking shots. The boring quarterbacks are usually successful in the league. Tom Brady, he's a boring quarterback. He's a pocket.
Is he fancy?
No, he's not. He's not fancy.
Who is fancy?
Well, as far as dressing is concerned, Joe Burrow is fancy. That's for sure. Off the field,
all those guys are fancy. Have you seen the ridiculousness they wear? It's like a weak face.
Well, none of them are going to be as weird as Cam Newton.
I'm speaking about the field. I'm not speaking about what they do off the field. Okay, but as far as Josh Allen is a fancy player. What he likes to do is he likes to move out of the pocket. He likes to use his legs. He jumps over people. He uses his body and his build to knock people over. Joe Burrow, he's a tall, scrawny guy, probably weighs 210 pounds soaking wet. He's a guy that stands in the pocket. He believes in his strength. He uses his brain. He sees the fields. He scopes out the field. And he sees the one thing about him is he never throws to his first option. He always looks for his second and his third. That's what makes Joe Burrow so special. And here's another thing that I like about Joe Burrow. He's never afraid of the specific time that he needs to make the play. He's always in that time and in that place when he needs to make a play. And that's the difference. Josh Allen, over the last couple of years, especially in the playoffs, when it came down to it, in the Kansas City Chiefs game, he was fantastic. He needed to make the play. He made the play. But there were games before that. And his first year, remember when he went into the playoffs, I think it was his second year.
Right.
And he lost against, I think, Tennessee.
Houston.
They
were up 16-0 at the half, and then they blew it.
Right. And in the second half, Josh Allen completely laid a lousy goose egg. He couldn't make any throw. He had problems moving inside and out of the pocket. And you saw that maybe because it was his first time in the playoffs, maybe because he was young. Now, all of a sudden, he's been there back-to-back years. He's been in that situation. And you expected, even if it's snowing, and they knew it was going to snow, and they play in the snow every single year. They had the advantage over the Cincinnati Bengals. How many times do you see it snow in Cincinnati? Not as much as in Buffalo. Buffalo, they've had, I think, 6 feet of snow so far this year. They had at one time in the beginning of the year, beginning of the winter, they had 3 feet of snow.
Right, I had to move the game to Detroit.
Yeah. So this is a place that they practice in. They train on the field. They know how strong the field is and where the slippery parts of the field is. Why did they go out in the game and they get outplayed by the other team, the team that never plays on the field and hasn't played on the field all season?
I have it on good authority that Cincinnati trucked in 5 feet of snow to their stadium for practice the week before.
That's quite a tactic. There's still a difference between artificial snow
and they got
snow
it
that
from
falls at
Buffalo because they wanted the snow to feel the same wetness and cold as Buffalo snow, so they trucked it in.
Well, Joe Burrow is used to it himself, though, because he is from Northern Ohio.
I will tell you this, if people don't know, Joe Burrow has played in 2 snowstorms in his career, and he's won both of them now. 2 snowstorms, and he's won both of them.
Joe Burrow just bothers winning. That's all that gentleman does.
Well,
that gentleman is an outstanding bat.
And I'll say this again, and I'll say it over and over again. When everybody was comparing Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, I've always said, if you were to compare Joe Burrow to somebody, it would be Tom Brady. And the reason why is just his presence in the pocket. He stands in the pocket. He has a very fast release. He sees the field. He scopes the field. He'll throw the short passes. He'll throw the long passes. He's confident, and he is not afraid of the time and the place for anything. He has always been a successful quarterback from college to high school, and even when he was a third-string quarterback in Ohio State. Third-string quarterback before LSU, he decided to go to LSU and play one year and then win a national championship over there. And he became the number 1 draft pick. Everybody said that this guy was more confident and more understanding of the game than any quarterback that he's seen. That Ohio, Urban Meyer said he's the best quarterback he's ever seen in big time plays and big time games that he's ever seen. And by the way, he never started Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow never started for Urban Meyer. Never. Yeah,
I do have it on good authority that Justin Herbert is fancy just based on the mustache.
Yeah, Joe.
You can't have that mustache and not be fancy.
Joe Burrow and Justin Fields were both transfers at the same time from Ohio State that never actually played for Ohio State. Fields did later because they just got him that year, but he didn't even start right away, too. They still at the end of Haskins, at the beginning of Haskins and the end of Martell, I think it was. Tate Martell.
Just think, Joe Burrow, when Urban Meyer interviewed and they mentioned Joe Burrow and what he did last year, and Urban Meyer said that Joe Burrow is the best quarterback at the position that he's ever seen play in a big stage and actually show up in a big stage and do the things that he was supposed to do. He has had so many people, Tim Tebow, all these different quarterbacks, and he said that Joe Burrow's the best, and he never started him. So that just tells you the difference between what Joe Burrow is as a quarterback and what he's become as an NFL quarterback.
Well, that's easy for him to say after the fact, right? That's really easy to say about your third-string quarterback after he wins a national championship and shows up in the playoffs every year and gets a name like Joe Cool.
And probably would have destroyed them just as badly as they destroyed Clemson if Clemson was able to hold on and beat Ohio State was able to hold on and beat Clemson. Remember, Ohio State blew it like 14-point lead against Clemson in that game and Trevor Lawrence.
Well, I mean, hell, Zach Wilson probably could have been throwing to Justin Jefferson and
it was Jamar Chase and Terrence Marshall.
Yeah, Jamar Chase. I mean,
Randy Moss's son was on that team too as the tight end.
You got Mike Hollis out there kicking the ball to those guys and still probably score a few touchdowns per game.
Yeah. It is pretty amazing what Joe Burrow is doing, and he deserves a lot of credit. And now they're moving on to an AFC title game where they're 3-0 against Kansas City in the last 3 times they've met. And to me, the advantage goes to, it doesn't matter where it is. Arrowhead, it could be in Cincinnati, it could be in Atlanta. It doesn't matter. It matters who shows up to the game. And right now, if I was a Kansas City Chiefs fan, I would be worried about Patrick Mahomes. He is not 100% healthy. We all know that he isn't. High ankle sprain means he's probably going to stand in a pocket. His strength is moving out of the pocket and throwing on the run. He's not going to do a lot of that. He was practically throwing on his front foot the whole second half of the game. How he won that game against Jacksonville was absolutely amazing. I got to give him a lot of credit because having a high ankle sprain and you have to throwing off your, you're always trained to throw off your back foot. You're always trained to throw that way. That's where all your strength comes from. And he had to throw off his front foot. It's pretty amazing that he came back in the second half and actually won that game for his team. That shows you the heart that he has and the ability that guy has and the strength of his arm.
So the question we all really want to know is at Miller's Ale House, was anything thrown?
No, not near our table, at least. There was nothing thrown.
Were there any cupcakes served? Because that is fancy.
No, but Errol did order a large dessert.
I did.
Oh, all right. Interesting. What did you order, Errol?
I ordered a large, a large brownie ice cream with,
oh, nice.
It was good. It was heated.
What kind of ice cream?
Vanilla. It was vanilla on a hot brownie. It was really, really good.
Did you eat it with your fingers? Because that's the only way to go.
No, I didn't eat it with my fingers. Why would with COVID-19?
Because that's fancy. Everyone else uses a fork and knife.
Is it Joe Burrow quarterback fancy though?
With COVID-19,
Joe Burrow would totally do that. We do it every week. We go to 31 flavors and Baskin Robbins.
Hold on. With COVID-19, why would I dip my hands in, into a dessert where everybody is going to take a taste of it?
Well, then you have to ask yourself, where else have your hands been?
Well, obviously.
If you're that concerned.
I mean, yeah.
Like, what are you touching?
You're touching the table. I mean, even though the tables are being wiped down, it doesn't matter. You don't know what's on the tables. Come on, man. Even when you go to the bathroom, you wash your hands. You could stay under and wash your hands for 10 seconds. It doesn't mean it's 100% clean. Right or wrong?
Well, and if by that theory, then you're never can say that you're 100% clean, no matter if you stand there for an hour.
You're such a.
I don't think anyone's technically 100% clean unless they go in one of those isolated white rooms in a hospital or something.
Yeah, yes. Clean rooms. I would agree with that. Or you can lick your hands clean. That works too. And then you get all your immunities as well.
If you lick your hands, you'll have from your tongue though. So that wouldn't work either, Snug. I think the only way to do it is to be in one of those white rooms.
Maybe just go face first. You're right, Speedy. That makes a lot of sense, bud.
Oh, so you want me to stick my head in the brownie and not touch it?
That'd be kind of cool if you did that and did it on camera because, maybe do it as a stunt for the Kenny show.
Well, no, I'm not going to do that. But thank you.
Kenny might do that.
I'm not doing that. I don't want to embarrass myself. As a matter of fact, a lot of Giant fans were embarrassing themselves, screaming. I remember when Philadelphia was on the offensive side of the ball and they were screaming about Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones wasn't even on the field. They were screaming.
I heard that too.
Yeah, the Giant fans are screaming Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones wasn't even on the field. I'm like, what? Are we watching the same game?
I hate to say it, but the Giants fans are a little bit of an ingrates with Daniel Jones because he's better than at least half the league. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, 100%. Yeah,
probably 100%. Closing in on the top 10, but maybe not quite there. So I'd rather have him than Dak Prescott. That train wreck of.
We'll get into Dak a little bit later in the show.
Well, he outplayed Dak Prescott this year because Dak Prescott had 15
Dak Prescott's
turnovers.
not fancy at all. That guy's off the list.
He's off the list of fancy quarterback classifications.
Dog food.
Is Daniel Jones fancy, Snug? Where do you classify Daniel Jones a fancy quarterback? Does he count?
Daniel Jones, he's pretty fancy. We've seen those haircuts. They're always sharp and on point. I imagine he dresses pretty good, too.
I don't know about that. Daniel Jones never cuts his hair. Are you kidding me? Have you ever seen Daniel Jones have a fade? Have you ever seen it? He has the same haircut he came when he came to the league with Duke. He hasn't changed.
I wish Daniel Jones would rock the mullet. I think he would look perfect in it.
Wow.
And it would distract the other teams.
Well, Snug, you maybe you're coming on to something. So I don't know.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Well,
next time I hang out with Daniel Jones, I'll let him know.
Yeah. Well, you do that. You do that. Thanks, Snug. Thanks, Snug.
All right, Joe. Yeah. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Snug the cat.
Mm-hmm. It's first time calling since the first time Kenny was on our feed on the video.
Yeah, I haven't heard from him in a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he only calls when Kenny's on the feed.
Yeah, but he's right. The game was over from the start of the game.
Right.
It really was.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Burrow outplayed Josh Allen. And we could go and look at the numbers. The numbers, it's not about the numbers and what the numbers show. It matters what we saw on the field. And to me, Buffalo had no running game.
Right.
Buffalo could not run the ball. They could not run the ball. And in the offseason, I think Buffalo needs to look at maybe some of these running backs, these veteran running backs that are going to be available. Saquon Barkley, are they going to have enough money to pay him?
Right. No, they're going to have a lot of trouble paying him. What they really need to focus on is just the volume of running. They only had 14 rushing attempts in the whole game.
But you don't have a game-changing running back. You don't have a Saquon Barkley. You don't have a Jacobs. These guys are available this offseason. Maybe you make a move for them. Maybe you shed some cap with some of the other players that you have on the team. You gave Von Miller a lot of money. He tore his ACL and MCL. So he's probably going to miss at least a quarter of the season. And maybe if Von Miller plays in the game's different.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's more of a concept-based thing where they've always been missing a power back for a while, just a guy that can wear the pass rush out, because we've seen in a lot of the games, not the Chiefs game last year where they lost in the shootout, but a lot of the other playoff losses they've had, their offensive line has really had trouble. This game, their offensive line was not very good either. And the Chiefs lost in 2021 in the AFC Championship game. Their offensive line was abysmal. So maybe they need a guy that could just wear guys out, even just a power back in the fourth round to just do that and make it easier.
They've been drafting running back after running back after running back, and they can't find a running back. So just like the Jets have a problem drafting quarterbacks, they have a problem drafting running backs. A running back. Who was the last running back that the Buffalo Bills had that was dominant?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's weird because it used to be one of their strengths in terms of developing running
in the
backs.
90s.
Probably Fred Jackson or CJ Spiller was probably the last
in
one.
In the 90s was where they were the most dominant with their running back play. They loved to run the ball. Even with Jim Kelly, they were always a run first, throw second team. All those years, even when they went back to back Super Bowls, they were a run first, throw second team, and they were a defensive team.
Yeah, they went from Thurman Thomas then to Travis Henry, and then there were Willis McGahee. They had a lot of good ones before that too. That was a strength of the Bills' development for a while when they couldn't, even after Jim Kelly, when they couldn't find their quarterback. Yeah, now they haven't been done it as well. But it just seems like even the ones they draft, a lot of them are just more agility backs. Singletary's a smaller guy. James Cook, who they drafted, can run for a little power, but he's not that. I think they need a bruiser. I think they really need a guy that could just wear guys out on the defensive line and make it easier for Josh Allen and make it easier for that offensive line.
They need an all-dimensional running back. They need a guy that can run, catch, do everything, dominate the field. And finding it in the draft has not been their strength. Mm-hmm. So maybe going after a free agent guy, and there's a couple of good running backs that are going to be available this offseason where you might not have to pay a lot of money. Ezekiel Elliott could be available this year.
I think that would be perfect for them. I think that's the perfect type of guy.
Zeke could be available. The Cowboys are probably going to drop him because they're going to try to sign Pollard. Right. That's what I've been reading and some of the Twitter feeds that I've seen is that they're going to re-sign Pollard. Mm-hmm. So if they do that, they have to get rid of Zeke's contract. And I think Zeke will be available. And he's not getting a lot of money. He's getting old. He's getting up in age as a running back. I think he's 29, 30.
Yeah, he's not going to get more than probably $8 million.
He's not even getting that.
I don't even think so either. It was just the Bills just need that kind of back, though. They need their own version, like the Bengals have with P. Ryan, a power back that can help spell another back. Because I think James Cook is pretty good, but I don't think he's an every down back. And that's the problem the Bills need to be able to run at a higher volume. Because we've even seen, you talk about like teams that don't have great overall running backs. We've even seen teams like the Chiefs where random running backs will break out in the playoffs and they still will run at a high volume and succeed. We have not seen that yet with the Bills. By the way, Jeff is on the phone now.
Jeff, what's up, bud?
Errol, for once, I couldn't agree with you more. Could not agree with you more. Joe Burrow is terrific. I mean, he played a flawless game on I don't know, Saturday, Sunday, what day was it? I don't know. Sunday. It was over the weekend.
Yes. He was fantastic.
You know who didn't play a good game this weekend?
I can't wait for this.
Dak Prescott.
Yep.
Dak Prescott has to be the biggest piece of dog shit the NFL has ever seen, ever play. Ever. And how funny is it? Dak Prescott's such a big piece of shit that even other players on his team are getting the same injuries he had. How is it Tony Pollard breaks his leg? Dak Prescott.
Well, Dak didn't have a good game, and it wasn't just Dak's fault. The defense in the
it was.
No,
it was.
I won't say this. The defense played fantastic all the way through the fourth quarter. The last 10 minutes, 12 minutes of the game, they started giving yardage to Christian McCaffrey. They started using schemes with Deebo Samuel as a running back. It started opening up the field, and then I think the defense started getting tired. They did, but they don't have it.
But that's exactly what it was. You're hitting the nail right on the head. The defense was getting tired. Why were they getting tired? Because that piece of shit, Dak Prescott, couldn't take the ball and drive down the field and let the defense rest.
Jeff, hold on one second. They lost Pollard in the second quarter. They lost Pollard. He was out for the game, high ankle sprain. They don't have
a guy that's better than Barry Sanders already on the team that could pick up that slack. I think that they do. And here's the other problem with that. Oh, why can't Zeke Elliott pick up the slack? I don't know. Maybe they're playing him at center.
That was funny.
Well, that was at the end of the game. And Dalton Schultz, by the way, he and I knew
stud,
real stud. They don't have any weapons. When you look at their offense, CeeDee Lamb, obviously we know he's a stud. Dalton Schultz, horrible. Noah Brown, not good. T.Y. Hilton should have been on the team.
I don't want to hear that they don't have any weapons. They made the choice to trade Amari Cooper. They made that choice. And by the way, they don't have weapons? As far as I was told, they have a running back better than Barry Sanders.
Well, first of all,
that seems to be a weapon.
Well, I think Zeke Elliott has been done with the Cowboys for the last 2 seasons. The guy can't stay healthy.
No. Better than Barry Sanders. Put respect on his name.
Well, you know what really hurt him was losing Tony Pollard before the half. That really hurt them. And you saw the difference of the team. And when
who's been telling you that all year? That the Cowboys are only going to go as far as Tony Pollard can carry them? Who's been telling you that?
But unfortunately, and by the way, the 49ers did not play a good game. They did not play a good game.
They played a very good game. They played great defensively. Maybe not on offense. Yeah, and Brock Purdy, say what you want about Brock Purdy. He converted a lot of clutch third downs. And by the way, that the guy on the other side of the field that's making $200 million couldn't do.
With all the weapons that the 49ers have, Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, all the different weapons that they have. Even George Kittle, who, by the way, had that unbelievable catch in the third quarter.
Amazing catch.
It was unbelievable. But to me, I just thought they were going to play better. And everybody was talking about, and I know you like Brock Purdy. I know a lot of people like Brock Purdy.
It's not that I like Brock Purdy. I just think the 49ers have the best roster, top to bottom, offense and defense through the league.
I think the Eagles do. I think the Eagles being healthy, as healthy as they are now going into the playoffs, if Jalen Hurts plays the way he did against the Giants, nobody's beating him. And I will say this.
That's the one position, and I realize, I will concede you this. That is obviously the most important position.
Yes.
But that's the only place on the field where I think the Eagles have a very clear advantage because maybe wide receiver too, because I think Deebo is just as good as A.J. Brown.
Yeah,
I think they're equal. But, Devontae Smith probably better than Ayuk.
Yes,
that's fine.
Yeah.
But tight ends, Kittle is better than
Goddard.
The offensive line, the 49ers have a better offensive line. The 49ers have a better defensive line. The 49ers have a better secondary. 49ers
Eagles
have
better
corners.
Niners are better safeties.
The Eagles have the best offensive line in football.
Oh, I would disagree. Any team that has Trent Williams is the best.
He's probably the best individual. The Eagles are a little better.
The Eagles are better as a team, as an offensive line. And here's the thing: the Eagles, even in the game against the Giants, and the Giants put a lot of pressure in the wild card game. And that's one of the reasons why they beat Minnesota. And they used 6 or 7 DBs at some points in the game in third downs. They tried to do that. Against the Eagles in the second quarter. They weren't having it. The Eagles were not having it. And when Jalen Hurts saw 6 corners on the field, he started running the ball. Every time they brought 6 corners on the field, he was running the ball. And the Giants couldn't stop him. They couldn't stop him. And I'll tell you this, if the 49ers do the same thing on Sunday, they don't stand a chance. Now, I love San Francisco's defense. Their front seven is probably the best in the league. It's not even close. In their secondary, I think there's holes in the secondary. They have probably the second best safety in football. But throughout that defense, they have a bunch of young guys. That kid Ward has made a lot of mistakes so far in the playoffs, and now you're gonna kind of probably put him on A.J. Brown. You put him on A.J. Brown, A.J. Brown's gonna eat him up alive. This isn't the Giants. This isn't
Maybe,
Slayton.
maybe, but any of the top wide receivers are going to eat up whoever they play. Like, let's be honest. Like, that is what it is. For a guy like AJ Brown, it's going to take two guys to bracket him to play him effectively. That's what it's going to take.
Well, yeah, the Niners, both playoff games so far, they've had Seattle, DK Metcalf, their number one receiver, had over 100 yards. And in this game, CeeDee Lamb had over 100 yards. But the Niners have done a good job at stopping everybody else. I'm curious to see if because Charvarius Ward has struggled with those more exotic outside guys, if they try putting him on Smith instead, because he has experience playing the slot with the Chiefs.
By the way, do you see a trend too? I noticed another trend. Who do you think was the Cowboys' best lineman this year?
Zach Martin.
Because I would go with Tyler Smith.
Oh, Tyler Smith
expectations-wise, probably, but Zach Martin's still their best.
Tyler Smith had a great year. Yes.
Tyler Smith played multiple positions. He played them great. He was terrific. And he has something very much in common with CeeDee Lamb. He was unwanted.
By the beef, yes, we know.
So is that your reputation of who the best Cowboys players are? He didn't want Van Der Esch either, by the way.
Right, but this is what I'm saying. The Cowboys, Jerry Jones should call Mike from Bayshore and say, Mike, who do you like? And when he says, I like CJ Stroud, they go, they hit the panic button and then everyone stay away from CJ Stroud. He's terrible.
Cowboys will trade up from 28 to number 5 to draft him, and they'll give away 6 first-round picks.
Right. They should call him and be like, what do you think is a position of need? Oh, wide receiver, great. We're going lineman.
It'll be like Nathan's trade proposal last year to go from 27 to 4 to draft Sauce Gardner.
Here's some good information about the Cowboys and 49ers game that you probably didn't know. The 49ers advanced to the 16th conference championship since 1980, which is most in NFL history in this span. Brock Purdy is the fourth quarterback drafted in the 6th round or later to make a conference championship, joining Dieter Brock in 1985, Kurt Warner in 1999, and Tom Brady in 2001. CeeDee Lamb with 111 yards. No other Cowboys skill player had more than 33 yards in the game. Brock Purdy is the third rookie quarterback since 1970 to win multiple playoff games in his first season as a quarterback. Christian McCaffrey with a touchdown in 8 straight games, the longest streak of his career and the longest by at 49ers since T.O. in 1998. Cowboys offensive line only gave up 5 quarterback pressures all game. That's how good.
Which tells you something about Dak Prescott, doesn't it? That the line held up for him. He had plenty of time, and he was such a big piece of shit, he still couldn't find anyone open.
What's so interesting about that particular game, not even with those statistics and those numbers and anything, it was just the way the game was moving. It looked like the Cowboys were dominating in the first quarter. Their defense played so well in the first quarter. And then after, obviously, Brett Maher actually missed that extra point, everything started falling apart, because then you saw the Cowboys not trusting the kicker, and they decided, okay, every time it's 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, we're going for it, because we can't trust the kicker that he's going.
Yeah, but he made kicks, and the one he missed wasn't a miss. It was a block.
It would have missed. Though. You can see the replay. It would.
You don't know that.
The way it was spinning, it looked like it was going to miss.
Kicks curved, Speedy. Kicks.
It was curving already, and it was curving to the left.
Yeah, it was curving to the left. He was going to miss.
You don't know that it would have missed. It was a block. That is what it is. And by the way, he scored more points than the rest of that team, didn't he?
Yeah, technically speaking, yes. If you want to.
So this isn't about Mar or having no confidence or whatever. This is about how big of a piece of shit Dak Prescott is and how he's completely worthless.
Well, Herm
Edwards
defends Dak, takes a shot at the Cowboys. I won't go there with it, but I will say it. It's unfortunate. It really is, when you think about somebody in the organization. You're entitled to your opinion, but this thing is called a team loss. So he's saying,
no, it's not.
He's saying
it's not. It's wrong. He's wrong. He's 100% wrong. It's not a team loss. The defense played terrific. You hold that team, that 49ers, that team to such few points. Your offense should be able to put up more points and be able to control the ball better. And Dallas probably should have won the game. And I'm not listening to football advice from someone who couldn't even stay at Arizona State, and they're terrible, and also began the downward spiral of the Jets.
Well, Jeff, I'll give you some context. The tweet, his comments was actually about the tweet the Cowboys team social media account had after the game, where they said it was self-inflicted wounds, and they showed a picture of Dak Prescott studying film on the tablet, and he mentioned the 2 interceptions. He was talking about it with that. I don't know if again
that social media manager needs a raise because he was accurate. He was speaking truth to power.
How about after the game, Cowboy fans were breaking TVs and burning Dak Prescott jerseys? So I mean, that's horrible. You can't blame one player on the reason why they lost, Jeff.
You can't in that game. What are you going to tell me? The defense didn't do enough?
No, I think that obviously Mike McCarthy made mistakes as a coach. The play calling in the second half was abysmal.
Hold on. Let's go over this. Because you just gave the stat. The offensive line only allowed, 4 pressures?
5 total pressures to that defense.
5 total pressures in the game. In the entire game, the offensive line did their job. Okay? The defense, everyone's saying the defense did their job. They held up. They forced a ton of punts. They played great, especially the first half of the game. They were terrific. Can we all agree the defense did their job?
Yeah.
So who was lacking? Who didn't? Because you're saying, the skill position players beyond CeeDee Lamb only had like 30 yards. Well, who's in charge of getting the skill position guys the ball?
There's only one skilled player on the field on that team. Who does the Cowboys have? Come on, man. Who does the Cowboys have?
Gallup, Schultz, Noah Brown.
Okay, let's see what Gallup did all season long. Do we have to look at his numbers? Because Gallup has not had a good season.
Numbers again.
Hold on.
Dude, they got rid of Amari Cooper to go with Gallup.
I understand.
That is a decision the team made before the season.
First of all, it was a decision that the organization made because they couldn't afford it. Because they have Ezekiel Elliott on the team, which, by the way, if you want to point fingers on who didn't have a good game, when Pollard got hurt in the second quarter and he was out for the game, it's time for Ezekiel Elliott. He's Superman. He wears the Superman shirt. He wears the half shirt under his jersey who likes to show his abs. Why did he come up and show up in the game?
He's the $17 million fullback and center.
How dare you? Actually, how dare you? That is actual blasphemy what you're doing to a running back that's better than Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
No, he's a $17 million fullback
10 carries.
Want to be a center.
10 carries, 26 yards, 2.6 an average a carry. That is horrible. An average running back in the NFL averages 3.1.
You're missing the other stat. He had 1 terrific snap.
Oh, yes. At the end of the game.
His audition to be a center.
By the way, what was Mike McCarthy thinking at the end of the game? I honestly,
if you go back and look at the play, he put the 2 linemen on each side.
I understand what he was doing.
Right, and because it was going to be a game of pitching around, and you need a skill guy in the middle of the field for that whole thing. So I understand that play, as goofy as the whole thing looked. Right, I can understand that play. It's a trick play. It's a gadget play.
It's a trick play that they throw it. They threw it for the one thing. They did the route way too deep, though. They should have just done it as a screen if they're going to do it like that. Then start the lateral to the outside.
Right. And I totally agree. Like, completely agree. They did the play wrong. Who did the play wrong? Dak Prescott.
Yeah. Well, I know you hate Dak Prescott. I know.
I don't hate him. I'm just highlighting that I've been right for the last 7 years.
LaShawn McCoy calls Dak an ass again after doing it during a regular season game as well. So obviously LaShawn McCoy doesn't like Dak Prescott. He played for the Eagles. So LaShawn McCoy has his thoughts. Also, Ezekiel Elliott says he would take a pay cut to stay with the Cowboys next year. So
well, he's going to have to.
I don't think so. I think the Cowboys are going to have to let him go. I think there are quite a few.
And there's a lot of good running backs in this draft. There's 5 running backs right now I would kill to have on my team. Kill.
Yeah, well, again, I'm not going to request that for the Bills to do that because every single time the Bills bring in a running back, they just don't work.
I mean, there's 5 guys in this draft that are almost can't miss.
Give us the 5.
Off the top of my head, Bijan Robinson. He is probably the best running back that we've seen in the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know you like Charbonnet. I know you like Charbonnet as well.
I like Charbonnet. I like Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs can run, bro. And I'll give you two kind of like different running backs that are different styles. Don't count out Tank Bigsby. He's tough.
Okay.
He's tough. And the other one runs like a deer. Devin A-Chain is unbelievable.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot of hype towards the end of the year. I could definitely see where he could work in the NFL.
It's interesting. It is interesting. And again, going back to the San Francisco 49ers and Cowboys, it was an ugly game. It really was. It was an ugly game. It was an all defensive game. And if you like defense, that was the game to watch. What Micah Parsons did in the second quarter, I forget what was it, the right tackle or left tackle of the
it was the right guard.
It was the right guard. No, it was the right tackle. It was the right tackle when he grabbed him and threw him on the ground, and then he practically pulled Purdy's arm to the floor. I mean, it was unbelievable.
You didn't even have to be a fan of defense to like that game. If you just enjoy watching Dak Prescott fail, it was a masterpiece.
All right. We all know you don't like Dak, okay? We all know. 23 for 37, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And one of the interceptions was his first one was absolutely brutal.
And now throw up Brock's numbers too, by the way, because Mr. Irrelevant outplayed Mr. 170 million, 80 million.
19 for 29, 214 yards, no touchdowns.
So more yards.
No touchdowns, no interceptions.
Oh, right. But more yards. And while he didn't have a touchdown, he's 1 touchdown less. He was also 2 mistakes less than Dak Prescott. And those 2 mistakes cost the Cowboys the game because they gave away points.
Well,
also, one was in the red zone.
Also, the fact that they couldn't kick the ball. I mean, honestly, in the first half, they didn't trust.
But they did kick the ball.
Yes,
in
the third quarter, they kicked the ball. They had to kick the ball because
that's on McCarthy for not going to him earlier and doing it like that. And McCarthy can take some of the other blame too, because for the second straight year, terrible clock management.
Yeah,
it was horrible clock management.
It was absolutely
Mike McCarthy tradition.
That was probably, to me, especially in the fourth quarter, with 3 minutes left of the game, the fact that he wasn't using the timeouts and I understand he thought he was going to get the ball last, and then they got the ball with what was it, like 2 minutes and 50 seconds. They went 3 and out really, really quick, and he decides I would have went for it because you weren't going to get another chance. I didn't think they were going to get another chance.
They would have gotten another chance. They would have gotten another good chance. But they would have gotten another good chance if the clock management had been fine, because they would have gotten the punt off.
Yes.
And so there would have been 30 seconds, the timeouts, and the Cowboys would have gotten the ball with like a minute 50 left instead of 40 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever it was.
Well, they would have used they should have used the 2 minute warning.
But if they run the punt team onto the field and get the punt away, the 49ers would have had the ball with 2 minutes and 2:25 left, and running plays, say they take 5 seconds. Great. 5 seconds timeout, 5 seconds timeout, 5 seconds timeout. And then they have to punt it to you. So you would have gotten the ball back with 2 minutes.
Elijah Mitchell made a mistake too, stepping out of bounds. And that could have cost the 49ers and gave the Cowboys a little bit of more of a chance and more time on the clock to make plays. And by the way, Dak Prescott, I don't know what he was doing in the end zone. I have no idea. And the fact that Armstead didn't take him down is pretty amazing too. That was a safety. I don't know how he got away, and then he just threw the ball away. And it just terrible play calling. And what the heck? And I'll say this: what the heck was Dalton Schultz doing? How did he not?
He's the Terrence Williams school of going out of bounds.
What the hell are you doing? I mean, and then they went to everybody knew that he didn't have both feet in. Everybody knew. So they had to go and they had to check the instant replay. No, well, the instant replay.
The ref called him in.
I know that the ref called him in, but everybody on the field and everybody in the audience knew, and the fans knew, that he did not have both feet in. Yeah. I knew it. I saw it. There was no way his 2 feet were in there. And then you see Mike McCarthy at the end of the game. It's like I sometimes I wonder. Mike McCarthy was as good as his quarterbacks was. Okay, he coached Brett Favre, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He coached Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Okay, now he goes over there to the Dallas Cowboys and he coaches Dak Prescott. And everybody thought the reason why Jerry Jones brought him in there is because he's a lot of people thought he was a quarterback whisperer. He can help Dak Prescott develop his skill. And what has he done? If anything, he's made Dak Prescott worse, honestly, because I think everybody keeps saying, well, Jason Garrett was horrible. Jason Garrett was horrible. If you look at Dak Prescott's best year, it's with Jason Garrett. So you could go back and forth and argue your points on what Jason Garrett did and how much he screwed Dak Prescott's motion, his throwing motion, everything. Dak Prescott's best year was with Jason Garrett. So that's why I laugh when everybody says, well, Jason Garrett sucked. Yeah, they didn't win with Jason Garrett. They're not going to win with Mike McCarthy either.
Jason Garrett also had trouble with clock management.
But you know what's funny about Cowboy fans though too, because they were so quick to shit all over Tony Romo. We don't want Tony. We want Dak. We don't want Tony. We want Dak. Well, now they got him, and now they all don't want Dak Prescott. Cowboy fans are perpetually unhappy with what they have. Perpetually unhappy. And you want to know who my MVP of the week is?
Who?
Natalie Buffett. Natalie Buffett is my hero. Do you know who Natalie Buffett is?
Dak's now broken up girlfriend.
The girl that looked Dak Prescott in the eye and said, "You're a loser," and dumped him this week. She wants to be with winners, and that ain't Dak. Good for Natalie Buffett.
Well, but you have to realize she knew she wasn't getting a ring.
I know.
But this is the first of 3 in a row.
That wasn't my idea. I just saw it in a meme.
That's pretty good. She knew she wasn't getting a ring.
But this funny. Is the first of 3 in a row. Dak Prescott's amazing. You'll see. We're going to win Super Bowls.
My response to that question was just which team was he going to play for? Because we knew it was going to be the Cowboys. Don't worry, he'll win as a backup 3 Super Bowls in a row somewhere else.
I hope Dak Prescott gets cut or traded, goes anywhere, and I hope that team immediately wins a Super Bowl. Immediately.
All the Cowboys fans want to trade him now.
Well, they want to trade him, but they're not going to.
No, I don't think they will either. But
first of all,
Cowboys fans are the worst people on the planet.
He just signed an extension, so I don't think Dak's going anywhere, and I don't know who's going to want him. He's making.
Yeah, but there's outs though. I think that there's outs in that contract.
I think not for another year. I think he's still.
Yeah, he's got 2 more years left.
Yeah, I think he has another year left before they can out the contract. I think it's a year.
I don't know about that because they reworked it though too.
I don't know. Speedy will
look because they restructured it.
No, I know they restructured it, and there was a reason why they restructured it. So
there's an out after next year.
That's what I
just
said.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's what I said. I know it was next year
because he has 2 more years left on the deal. This deal came in 2021. So.
And Dak, you know, as much as
and it's only going to get worse for them too because of the restructure. Do you know how much Dak Prescott counts against the salary cap next year?
It's his contract this year is $49.13 million. And his contract this year because of the restructure was 19.73. Oh, yeah.
Next year it goes to 49 million, and the year after it goes to 52. And if they cut him, right? So if they do they have to keep him? Because he's going to count for 52 in 2024. Because if they cut him, he'll be $39 million worth of dead cap.
Well,
woof. What a actual negotiator Jerry Jones is. I mean, this guy is next level brilliant, isn't he?
Thank God his son. Thank God his son has a little bit of stability in the organization. Otherwise, who knows where they go.
Well, Cowboy fans just deserve this guy with these contracts. I love it. I hope they're all miserable.
And they have to pay CeeDee Lamb soon, too. He's going to want $100 million. I told the Beef the other day, I said he has 1 more year. And then they have to franchise him. He's not going to like being franchised. He's going to want $100 million. He's, to me, and he keeps telling me they should have kept Amari Cooper. You over the last couple of years, how many times have we heard the Beef say that Amari Cooper is better than CeeDee Lamb? CeeDee Lamb had one of the best years a Cowboy wide receiver has had since Terrell Owens. Okay,
you can't go off of what he wants though. He's so perpetually wrong about everything. He's screamed about every draft pick for forever, and they all turn out to be good when he says he doesn't want them.
I even told him in Miller's Hale House it was funny because the player he wanted was Xavier McKinney. He was obviously now a Giant. I said, "Don't worry, Beef. When the Cowboys let CeeDee Lamb go, you could try to trade him to us. We'll give you Xavier McKinney in a 3rd-round pick."
Yeah, well, but that's the thing. They should hire Beef to be their GM, so that he can just draft all the miserable pricks that'll always perpetually be no good, and the rest of the league can have good players.
Well, McKinney's good, but he's not as good as CeeDee Lamb.
No, he's
Yeah,
not. CeeDee Lamb
but he
is
didn't
an
want
elite wide
CeeDee Lamb.
receiver.
But he didn't want CeeDee Lamb.
I know he wanted Xavier McKinney really badly, so I offered it to him at Miller's Ale House. Xavier McKinney and a 3rd-round pick for CD Lamb.
And the belly aching that he did when he called me about Tyler Smith, that's what led to us not talking, because I laughed at him for not liking Tyler Smith. And he got mad and cried, right? Well, like I will say, dude, Tyler Smith's a good player. Yeah. And he, everything that he thinks is good ends up sucking, and everything that he hates ends up being good.
Well,
Van Der Esch. Van Der Esch is another one. How upset was he when they drafted Van Der Esch? I don't know. Probably their 2nd best player on defense.
Yeah.
Parsons being the best.
Yep.
Listen, the Beef's not always right about his thoughts of certain players and comparison to stats to some of the other.
What do you mean not always right?
No,
I would take right one time. So far, he hated Tyler Smith. He hated CeeDee Lamb. He hated Van Der Esch. Right? He thinks Dak Prescott's the best. He thinks Zeke Elliott's better than Barry Sanders. Name one time he was right.
Well, all I could say is what CeeDee Lamb did this year was probably this is the best numbers a Cowboys wide receiver has had since Terrell Owens did it. Okay,
he's terrific.
He's the best wide receiver they've had since T.O. And T.O. is one of the greatest wide receivers.
And taken 3rd amongst wide receivers in that draft.
Yes. Nobody said the Raiders were the brightest either.
As good as Amari Cooper was, his best year, he never had 1,300 yards, almost 1,400 yards. His best years. And by the way, CeeDee Lamb has had 9 touchdowns this year. Amari Cooper, in his whole career, has only had 9 touchdowns 1 year, and that was this year with Cleveland.
Yep.
So that just tells you. And CeeDee Lamb is in the. What is he? 2-3 years into his career?
3rd year in the league. Yep.
Yes, it's 3 years into his career, and he's already breaking Cowboy records and numbers. And that just shows you how great. And he's the only weapon they have. If you watch that game, Michael Gallup's okay.
On him, but Dalton Schultz is a good tight end, man. Come on.
He's but again, he's inconsistent though.
He's inconsistent, and
he's only inconsistent because they don't really throw to him. And they have another tight end on that team, too, that gets looked.
Yeah, they have a couple of rookies tight ends.
This is how good CeeDee Lamb was in that game. They knew the ball was going to CeeDee Lamb, and they still couldn't stop him. They had 2 guys defending him in the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter, and they still caught the ball.
Right.
So, yeah, well, he would have been shut down if they put Xavier McKinney on him, because that's who the Beef want.
It seemed like, though, they didn't really...
And I remember the Beef, and not just the Beef. A lot of Cowboy fans, when Amari Cooper was traded, and everybody was all over social media, why would you trade Amari Cooper? Because they knew that CeeDee Lamb was the next thing, and they had to give him his opportunity to be that number 1 guy.
But they were also forced into it because the money played the money played a part of that, and that's because the old man from the Scooby-Doo cartoons keeps screwing it up, handing out ridiculous contracts.
How about this? He could have dropped Ezekiel Elliott. And kept Amari Cooper.
No, he couldn't. Not without a huge dead cap hit.
Well, I would have.
What are the two worst contracts in the NFL?
The 2 worst contracts in all of the NFL?
Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, are you going to say?
No. Aaron Rodgers being one of them. It's Aaron Rodgers.
No, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is living up to it.
Yes.
Dak Prescott's not living up to it.
But you even said it. It's $50 million. You're paying one player $50 million, which hurts the cap of your team, where you can't really use the other part of that cap to go after players.
I would rather pay one Aaron Rodgers $50 million than Zeke and Dak Prescott $65 million.
Well, don't worry. The worst contract in the NFL is still Kenny Galladay's.
Hey, he was only 74 catches this year away from getting his bonus. That's not too bad.
Don't worry. He had that one key block, and now he'll disappear for 8 more games if they even keep him on the team.
Right, but those are 2 ridiculous contracts. You don't give a running back, what is it, $18 million a year?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is?
It's a $17 million fullback and center.
$17 million. I was off by $1 million. You don't give a running back 17. First of all, the only running back you pay is Derrick Henry, and that's it. Otherwise, draft them, run them into the ground. They're worth nothing. Get 10 of them.
Here's out of all 7 top quarterbacks in the league, this is how much they make. Christian McCaffrey makes $16 million a year. Alvin Kamara, $15 million a year. Zeke Elliott, $15 million a year. Dalvin Cook, $12.5 million a year. Derrick Henry, $12.5 million a year. Nick Chubb, $12.25 million a year. Aaron Jones, $12,000 a year, and then Joe Mixon.
Well, not 12,000 a year, but
I mean 12 million. I'm sorry, 12 million. So they're both making 12 million. So Aaron Jones and Joe Mixon are making 12 million each. So
but here in comparison, and I'm going to make an unfair comparison because it'll be fun. What did you say Zeke was getting? 13 million a year?
No, Zeke Elliott is making 15 million a year.
15 million a year. Do you realize for 15 million a year, I can get 30 Damian Harrises on that roster? 30 of them.
I understand what the Patriots do and how they like to maneuver.
But it's not just it's not just the Patriots. The Chiefs are doing it. Is it working out with Isaiah Pacheco?
Yes.
Is it working out with the Eagles with Kenny Gainwell?
Yeah.
I mean, you could go right. You can go around the league. And, was it working with the Jets with Breece Hall? I think it was. I can get 30 running backs on my roster. So when Tony Pollard breaks his leg, guess what? I don't care. I got 29 more of the guy on the bench.
Who drafts a running back in the top 5 in the league? How many times you see that? The Giants and the Cowboys.
But no one's saying you have to draft him in the top 5. You can find 100 running backs.
I understand.
6th round, 7th round, and they're all the same. And they're all the same.
I understand. But when you draft Ezekiel Elliott as high as you did, and then he becomes a free agent, you want to bring him back to your team. I think they overpaid for him, and I think it really cost them. They lost players. If they didn't pay Ezekiel Elliott $15 million a year, and they cut it down to 10, they keep Amari Cooper. They would still have Amari Cooper, and it might be a different game. It might have been a different game against San Francisco. It might have been a different season with Dak Prescott.
Right, but that's how poor. But I'm just highlighting how poorly run that organization is. That they handed out probably the 2 worst. Pickups. 2 worst contracts in the league, probably. Dak Prescott's not worth eating up 12, 13, 14% of your total salary cap. He's not. He's not worth it.
I understand that. And that, to me, with the quarterbacks and how much these quarterbacks are making now, and again, we're talking, and we're going to speak a little bit about Aaron Rodgers. We'll try to get into Aaron Rodgers tonight. If we don't, because we have
what's the total cap? What's the total cap? 253, 254?
254.
Right?
That's the total cap. And it's going up. I think it's going up 7 million this year.
Right. So what's 40 million? That's gotta be, is that 15% of your total salary cap?
Yep.
On a guy that is dog shit?
I know you want to put Dak Prescott down that he's like dog crap. I don't think Dak is as bad as you make him out to be. He can't play in the big game. He can't play in the big game. He can't.
Not only that, he also can't play against winning teams. Remember that one year he only beat one team with a winning
2019. I know.
And Cowboys fans go nuts for, oh my God, he's so great. Why is he so great? Because he threw for 400 yards against the Commanders? Get out of here, dude.
What we have seen with Dak Prescott the last 2 seasons is when the going gets tough and the pressure is on him, he makes mistakes. And he made a significant amount of mistakes in the first quarter before the fourth, because I can tell you some mistakes that he made in the fourth quarter, especially running mistakes, which got him sacked and put his team back in certain positions. I think the mistakes that Dak Prescott made in the first quarter really cost the Cowboys a chance to maybe take an early 10-0 lead, or maybe a 14-0 lead. He made a tremendous amount of mistakes.
He's the one making the mistakes.
And how many times do you see in the last 5-6 weeks? How many times have you seen San Francisco not score 2 or 3 touchdowns in a game? Usually, when you can cut them down to 1 or 2 touchdowns, you have a chance of winning the game. Am I right or wrong?
Look, Brock Purdy basically played the same game as Dak Prescott, right? You look at the numbers; they're essentially the same, except for 2 glaring differences. Third down percentage, which Brock Purdy was awesome and Dak Prescott sucked, and the interceptions. That's what it comes down to, is not making. Dude, how many interceptions did Dak throw towards the end of the season? I think he led the league.
Yeah, it was 15 interceptions. He led the league in interceptions, and he led the league in total turnovers.
Right. He's just making terrible decisions. So when you look at the game, and I know you're reluctant to blame Dak Prescott, the defense did their job. The offensive line did their job. All right, Mike McCarthy, he stinks, but we all knew that, the clock management stuff. But they shouldn't have been in that position, because Dak Prescott shouldn't have been turning the ball over and doing dumb shit. He is dog shit.
Thanks, Jeff.
I mean, he is. He's a bum. And their fans, horrible. Horrible. Give me top 5 worst fan bases in the league.
Thank you, Jeff.
Name the top 5 worst fan bases in the league. The Atlanta Falcons, because they don't show up, but no one cares because they're not around to say shit. So Falcons are in there. Cleveland Browns, I think that dog pound is bullshit. It's so dumb. And then the top 3 are Dallas, the Cowboys, and the Cowboys. Those are the top 3. It's like my list with Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is terrible.
Thank you, Jeff.
Cheers, boys.
Well, the Beav's not happy. That's for sure. The Beav has been, sending me some nasty text messages telling me to tell Jeff to keep his name out of his mouth or what. And it's interesting. I will say this. What we saw this Sunday was great football. All the games were very, very fun to watch. Every single game. The Jaguars in Kansas City, that was a close game. That was fun to watch. San Francisco and the Cowboys. The only game that wasn't close was the Eagles and the Giants. And again, a lot of Giant fans thought it was going to be close. I remember reading the newspaper, the Post, how everybody says this isn't the same old Giants and all this other stuff. And the Giants have never lost against a number 1 seed in the playoffs. They're 6-0. Well, the Eagles obviously read those things, or I don't know. I don't know what the Eagles were, telling, what the coaching and the coaches were saying before the game, but obviously they had the newspaper set up. Some of the things that Stephen A. Smith was saying. Stephen A. Smith had said that the Giants didn't stand a chance in the game, but he said if the Giants can keep it close in the first half, the Giants could win the game. That's what Stephen A. Smith said. Okay, so I just thought when you look at the talent from the Giants and the Eagles were far and along more talented. And usually it doesn't go that way in the playoffs. It's not always the most talented team wins. It usually means if you have a good quarterback, you have an elite quarterback, that quarterback will keep you in the game. And if your defense could show half up in a game and you can run the ball and control the clock, you can win the game. The Giants did it in 2007 and 2011. They weren't the best team. They weren't even the most talented team.
Especially 11.
They really had no weapons whatsoever. Victor Cruz, I mean, and he was a rookie. Mm-hmm. He really exploded when he when the Giants beat the Jets that year, Christmas Eve. I was there at the game. Nobody even knew who Victor Cruz was. And his what do they call it? The salsa dance. Okay, and the birth of the salsa dance. And then obviously the Giants went on a run. They were a 9-7 team. They were a wild card team. And they did what they did. It was absolutely amazing. And that it shows you, it doesn't matter if you have the strengths of these positions. If you have the strength, it's always about the trenches. If you have a strong offensive line, you have a strong defensive line, and you have a competent running game, it don't matter how good your quarterback is. It doesn't. You need the quarterback to make plays. In the big parts of the games, in the fourth quarter, Eli Manning, Tom Brady, even Peyton Manning when he won the Super Bowl, you need to make those throws. He had a terrible game against the Chicago Bears. He played Rex Grossman. It was terrible.
Yep.
But in the fourth quarter, when he needed to make a play, he made a play.
Joseph Adai was the best player in that
Even
game
when he played for the Broncos. And the Broncos, he was horrible. He was done. His career was over. When he needed to make the play in the Super Bowl, if you remember, when he needed to make the plays in the Super Bowl against Carolina, he did. And that's what you need a star quarterback to do. When the going gets tough. Was Joe Burrow great in the Super Bowl last year? He wasn't. You look at his numbers, they didn't stand out. Throughout the playoffs, he was good, but in the Super Bowl, the defense dominated. Both defenses played very well in the game. Matthew Stafford outplayed Joe Burrow in the game. And that's why I believe the Rams won. And the Rams could run the Rams finally found out how to run the ball in that game. The whole playoffs, they couldn't run the ball. And then finally, in the second half, they finally figured out how to run the ball. It was a trio of running backs, but they ran the ball.
Yep. They finally were able to break off a carry that was more than 5 yards. I think that was the first time all postseason they did that.
And Joe Mixon didn't have a great game in the Super Bowl, and that was the difference. Everybody thought Joe Mixon was going to be the exploding player. He was going to be the guy that was going to take over the game. And he had what? I think the second quarter he ran the ball he had a couple of 10-yard runs, and that was it for him.
Yeah, he had one in the fourth quarter too.
Yes,
that helped set him up in the field goal range.
20 yards,
they were held off that, and he had a passing touchdown too. But
yes.
Beyond that, yeah, very inefficient.
He did nothing. He did nothing in the game, and everybody on their DraftKings, everybody was picking him to score 1 or 2 touchdowns, and maybe somebody did say he was going to get a throwing touchdown in the game.
I know.
So, but I mean, nobody would have thought that the game would have ended up like that. And Odell Beckham was on his way to win an MVP, and he tore his ACL in the game. So, again, you just don't know what's going to happen in games. What's interesting about playoff football is there's always a surprise, star that comes out of nowhere. Always. Defensively, offensively, somebody shows up in the game and just completely explodes, and you never even heard of the guy. Or you've heard of him, he just was a nobody.
I think that's the biggest issue too right now with the state of a team like the Bills. A Bills team that's very talented, and I know they have all the injuries, a lot of the injuries on their defense this year, but still, I think they haven't been able to do the other unknown things yet in a playoff game. When they've won the game, they've dominated their way. But when it comes to a tendency of theirs being taken away, they haven't been able to adjust to that. Yeah, they won that sloppy one against the Ravens when it was a 10-3 game and nobody had an offensive touchdown forever. But beyond that, all the playoff games they won have just been based on their passing game and just dominating from there. And even the game they lost against the Chiefs last year, they weren't really shying away from anything different than what they normally do. They just got outdueled in a shootout. So that's the only thing that hurts them. When you look at a team like the Bengals, they were able to run when they haven't been running all year. Their offensive line, their backup offensive line, actually protected. You look at a team like the Chiefs, I mentioned earlier. Andy Reid always finds a running back to randomly break out in the playoffs. Damian Williams did it. Jerick McKinnon did it. Now it was Pacheco this year. The Bills really haven't had that kind of thing yet happen to them, and I think that's the next step they need to take from either a coaching standpoint or a development standpoint for them to be able to take that next step.
The Bills have always had that problem to find. They for years they needed to find the next guy since Jim Kelly. They found one obviously in Josh Allen. Now they've always had good running games. You're talking about Thurman and all these other guys that they've had, and all the guys that trioed right up to now, and now they can't find a running back. It's been every single year it's something else. They added Von Miller this year because they thought that Von Miller was the game-changing pass rusher they needed to help them win a Super Bowl. They bring him in, he tears his ACL week 5, week 6, and he's out for the season. So it's not about one player. It's a team game, and I understand it was snowing, and everybody's going to say it was snowing, but the Bengals had to play in the same weather. They had to play in the same weather, and it was your home turf. It was loud. It was cold. Everything was against them. All the chances of them winning, I mean, the numbers don't lie. Going into the game, I think the chance of them winning was like 65. The Bills 65%.
Yeah, I could believe that with the offensive line injuries.
65%, and they completely outplayed them. And again, we can attack every bit of the game when it comes to the coaching, because we all know about the Bengals coaching. We're not big fans of the Bengals coaching.
Nope.
But honestly, I'm not a big fan of the Buffalo Bills coaching either.
I'll give Taylor credit, though. He did coach, especially in the first quarter, very well in that game.
Taylor had a good game.
Yeah.
He had a good game. That was the best Zach Taylor game we've seen in a very long time.
In the playoffs his whole career.
It was a great game plan. He game planned it perfectly. And the defensive coordinator, the way they defensively completely took Josh Allen out of the game as quick as they did, showed you that they had a game plan and they followed through with the game plan. The Buffalo Bills, I don't know what their game plan was, throwing more balls to Stephon Diggs than Gabriel Davis. I don't know what they were thinking, because Gabriel Davis, in a lot of aspects of the game, was open. He was open a lot, and they didn't throw him the ball. And I don't know what Stephon Diggs was doing on the sidelines, but he was doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he's arguing, he's saying he's not touching the ball. I think he was thrown at least 11 times in the game. I think it was 11 times. I don't have the numbers up in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it was about 11 times, 10 or 11 times. Gabriel Davis, 7, 8. And Gabriel Davis in the big games, if you remember against Kansas City, who was the best wide receiver on the field? Gabriel Davis. How many touchdowns did Gabriel Davis?
4.
4 touchdowns in that game. That's the difference. How many? What, you looking at, Speedy? What is it?
I'm trying to find it. There's no target listing on this thing.
It's all right. It's fine. As far as Aaron Rodgers is concerned, I know a lot of Jet fans are excited when you hear our great ex-quarterback come out and Broadway Joe saying that he would take his number out of retirement, his number 12 out of retirement for Aaron Rodgers. And I don't understand why anybody is talking about Aaron Rodgers right now. We don't even know if Aaron Rodgers wants to play in New York. We did hear from Adam Schefter over the weekend saying that the only way the Green Bay Packers trade Aaron Rodgers is out of the NFC, out of the conference. They will not trade him to an NFC team because they don't want to play him. Now, the only 2 teams that I can think of that would make a move for Aaron Rodgers, where Aaron Rodgers might want to go, is the Las Vegas Raiders and the New York Jets. The reason why the New York Jets, I think because the Jets are young. The Jets are one player, a quarterback away from possibly being a contender. He knows that. The defense was one of the elite defenses in the league. They have weapons offensively with Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. And if they bring Denzel Mims back, if they want to bring back Corey Davis, which they probably aren't, they have an offensive line that could be at full strength coming back next year with Elijah Vera Tucker and maybe Mekhi Becton. Maybe they draft an offensive lineman in the first round at 13. Who knows? If they keep their first-round draft pick. But now you're hearing that the Green Bay Packers want 2 first-round draft picks for Aaron Rodgers. If any team, including the New York Jets, as good as Aaron Rodgers is, and he's fantastic, he's one of the best quarterbacks still in the NFL. Top 4, top 3, you can't argue it. You can't. The numbers he put up this year with no wide receivers, his best wide receiver was a rookie, Christian Watson, who, by the way, didn't break out until the second half of the season. And he was ranked, I think, 119th in the league when it comes to wide receiver numbers. He has not one, not even Lazar, he has not had one wide receiver that was in a top 100 in the NFL this year. Not one. And he still put up the numbers that he did. He still threw over 25, 27 touchdowns. I am not giving away 2 first-round draft picks for Aaron Rodgers. I would not give up that many for Aaron Rodgers. Not at all. Aaron Rodgers said on Pat McAfee's show that he is open to reworking his contract with the Packers. What does that mean? Does that mean he wants to be a Packer? We all know that there's a quarterback sitting on the bench that has come out and said that if Aaron Rodgers comes back, I want to be traded. Now, he is going on to his 5th-year option this year. Jordan Love is now going into his 5th season, his 5th option as a quarterback. They're going to give him his option because they don't want to lose him. After this year, they have to franchise him. He's not going to make much money because he hasn't played and you don't know how good he is. Why would you franchise a player that you don't know how good he is when you have other players that could make $18, $19 million and you want to save, you want to protect? So they're not going to do that. So they have to decide, is Aaron Rodgers worth bringing back for one more year? Because he has one more year left on his contract and $50 million. Even though he says he'll reconstruct it. Or is it better to trade him and try to get as much as you possibly can for him moving forward? Now, going to the Brett Favre thing, and we will kind of put this together tomorrow on the show because we'll get into the whole Aaron Rodgers New York Jets thing because there's a lot to get into with why I think it might be a good idea or might be a bad idea for the organization. And I'm going to bring in Brett Favre and when Brett Favre was actually brought in as a free agent and how it screwed up the Jets and screwed up coaching and obviously screwed up management. And then obviously brought Rex Ryan in, and people think helped them get to two AFC title games. But when you look at this whole situation, and there's a lot of things to look at, the Raiders are the biggest target for him. And that has a lot to do with Adams being there, Waller under contract still there. I think he has one more year left on his contract.
Mm-hmm.
Jacobs still have to figure out, but I think that if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Las Vegas Raiders, I think Jacobs resigns with the Raiders. Why? Because it's going to open up the field. It's going to open up holes for him. He's going to be even more of a dominant back with Aaron Rodgers there. You see what Aaron Jones does. When Aaron Rodgers goes from Green Bay, you think he's going to be as dominant as he is right now? Not a chance. Because teams know they're going to run first, throw second, even with Jordan Love. Yeah. Even if Jordan Love is a real good quarterback, they are going to run first. Teams are going to know that. Aaron Jones's numbers are going to go down. And you're paying a guy $12 million for numbers that are going to go down to possibly 1,000 yards at best this year and maybe 5 touchdowns, because teams aren't going to give you the opening chances. Dillon's not going to be as dominant as he has as a power back.
If he's even there, because he's a free agent after next year too.
Well, he's still there for this year.
He's still there for this year, but if Jordan Love doesn't even show up to that, it's going to diminish his value too, because A.J. Dillon is a bruiser. If the Packers get behind in games, he's going to barely be used. And same thing with Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, if Jordan Love doesn't produce from a passing game standpoint, that's going to limit his receiving too, because Aaron Jones is a good scrimmage back too, in addition to being a good runner. So if he doesn't work out and he gets disgruntled, maybe he demands a trade.
NFL insider Dov Kleiman tweeted he believes that the Raiders could look into trading both Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller. Now, if they do that, Aaron Rodgers will not go to the Vegas Raiders. If that happens, there's no way he goes over there, because it's the same team he had over there in Green Bay. Actually worse, because Green Bay had an elite defense that year. The year that they were the number 1 seed when they lost against San Francisco in the snow, if you remember last year, they were the number 1 seed. They lost in the divisional game against the 49ers because of, bad play calling.
Mm-hmm.
And special teams, by the way. It was absolutely horrendous.
Yep.
And everybody wanted to point fingers at Aaron Rodgers. Davante Adams goes to the Vegas Raiders to play with his best friend, Derek Carr. And now, what a coinky dink. Derek Carr becomes available this offseason, and so does Aaron Rodgers, possibly. And we don't know if he's going to become available. But I believe he's going to become available, because if I was Green Bay right now, sell him while he's hot. Sell him while you can get something for him. Are they going to get 2 first-round draft picks for him? No. There is no way a team is going to offer. Not the Jets are a stupid organization. I will tell you that. I'm a Jet fan. They are a stupid organization. They're not dumb enough. They're not dumb enough. Joe Douglas is not dumb enough to give up 2 first-round draft picks for a 39-year-old quarterback. As great as he is, you don't know. He could be a hit away from being done. Brett Favre was. Brett Favre was 8-3 with the New York Jets on a Thursday night football game against the New England Patriots. I'll never forget it. It was a cold night. It was even snowy a little bit. He gets hit. I forget who hits him. It was a defensive tackle on the Patriots. Hits him at the line of scrimmage. He hurts his shoulder, and he was never the same. The Jets winded up missing the playoffs, and guess who becomes the number 1 seed? Obviously, that was the year Matt Castle took over for Tom Brady. He tore his ACL in 2008. And that was the year that, yes, the Jets quarterback that they decided to part ways with for Brett Favre, Chad Pennington, wins the division and goes on into the playoffs as the number 1 seed in the AFC East. So it's just the Jets' luck that the quarterback that they brought in, the elite quarterback that he brought in from the Green Bay Packers, couldn't stay healthy all season long. And the quarterback that they decided to part ways, their guy, the guy they drafted from Marshall in 1997-98, they decided to part ways with him because of his shoulder, and he goes on and takes another team into the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers is not Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Brett Favre was at the age of 39. He is. He's a mobile quarterback. He can still do the things as well or even better than he did the last 2 years. You saw him this year. He played with a bad finger. I think it was a bad index finger. Couldn't grab a hold of the ball. I think that caused a lot of problems early in the season. As the season progressively moved forward, he dealt with it, and he played as well as he possibly can with the injuries that he had. It shows you how tough he is, and you want a tough guy, but you cannot put yourself at risk where you set your team back. If Aaron Rodgers, just say this, and I have some interesting information here, but Aaron Rodgers, if the Jets decide to give up 2 first-round draft picks, that would be number 13 this year, and if Aaron Rodgers, let's say, gets the Jets into the playoffs as a wild card team or 11-win team as a 3 or 4 seed, that would put the Jets at 25-26. So you'd give up the 25 or 26 pick next year. Aaron Rodgers could get hurt this year, early in the season. The Jets lose him for the rest of the season. You still have Zach Wilson. You still have to deal with Zach Wilson's crap. And that 25, 26 pick could turn out to be a lottery pick. Just think about that. You're giving up a 13th pick, which is practically almost a top 10 pick. It's not a lottery pick. In football, there's no lottery pick. It's almost a top 10 pick. Next year, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in the middle of the season and you lose him for the rest of the season, that pick, look at what Seattle did.
Mm-hmm.
Look what Seattle did. They traded Russell Wilson. They got the 9th pick. Seattle got the 9th pick this year. They drafted Charles Cross at number 9. He's one of the best young tackles. He was on the all rookie team. All rookie team.
First team all rookie.
Yeah, first team all rookie. Okay. And now, because the Broncos had a terrible season, which nobody thought possible, I think now the Broncos have a chance to draft at 5 and could get the quarterback of the future if they want, and Levis, if they really want him.
Yep.
Or they could draft Anderson if he's sitting there, or whoever's sitting there, back, or whatever they want. So they won on that trade because Russell Wilson, we don't know what he is anymore. And you just got 2 top 10 picks for Russell Wilson. And you got a second pick. I think 2 second picks for him, too.
Yep, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, and tight end Noah Font. And
who had a good season, by the way.
And defensive end Shelby Harris, who also had a good season this year.
So, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I think the Jets need to be very, very careful on making a move for Aaron Rodgers. Make sure that it's a fair deal and make sure that it makes sense. I think a conditional first-round draft pick for Aaron Rodgers, that means next year, wherever the Jets end up with the regular season. This year, I don't give up my first round. I give up my second this year and my first next year. Mm-hmm. That's where I would go because it protects your 13th pick this year where you can add to the talent, the young talent that you have. If it's an offensive lineman or a pass rusher, you can go at that and you could protect Aaron Rodgers. So you make sure that he's protected moving into the season. And then next year, no matter where the Jets are, 25, 26, you give it to the Green Bay Packers. And I think a second this year and a first next year makes a lot of sense. NFL Network, Peter Schrager says that the Jets are seriously considering Nathaniel Hackett for offensive coordinator position. If that happens, it's a foregone conclusion that the Jets are going to go after Aaron Rodgers. It's a foregone conclusion because to bring in Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers, you look at his numbers the last 2 years under Nathaniel Hackett, it's some of the best numbers he's ever had as a quarterback. And they'll run that offense, that same Green Bay Packer offense. And who is Robert Saleh's best friend? Who is it, Speedy?
Robert Saleh's best friend
is Matt LaFleur.
Matt LaFleur.
And Matt LaFleur is the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Joe Douglas says he wants a coordinator with experience, not one that can recreate a whole new offense. Jets would only have to shed a minimum of $3 million for cap space for Rodgers in a trade. Who is still open to reconstructing his deal? On the Pat McAfee show, Rodgers was saying good things about the Jets' weapons, particularly Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and C.J. Usama.
Very specific with C.J. Usama.
Mm-hmm. So he likes Usama. Mm. A lot of people like Usama. He's a leader. He was a big part of the Super Bowl run last year for the Bengals. Yep. He played in the Super Bowl hurt, even though he wasn't 100%. So yeah, see, I don't know if the Jets bring back CJ Osama, but if they bring Aaron Rodgers in, they have to.
He seems like a target he likes for whatever reason. It's weird. There's no prior connections to that I can remember because Osama's a younger player. He's a fifth-year tight end. Like Aaron Rodgers wouldn't have played with him in college. He wouldn't have played with him with the Packers. Like he wasn't a retread from there either. It seems kind of weird that he specifically mentioned Osama. But yeah, he likes a lot of the Jets skill players, which is a good sign.
It is a good sign, but again, it would scare you as a Jet fan when you put yourself in position to trade away future picks for a guy that's 39 years old and you don't know what he is as far as health is concerned. Yes, obviously before the trade goes through, you gotta bring him to your medical end and test him in every kind of way. But remember, Aaron Rodgers has played hurt year in and year out. Every year he's hurt. Bad fingers, bad toes, bad. I think last year a turf toe, and he has had knee problems over the years. He's broke his clavicle a couple of times.
That was 2017.
I mean,
he's hurt
his shoulder before. I mean, this guy's played hurt, and how many concussions that Aaron Rodgers has had over the years. So, I mean, he's a tough guy. But to give up 2 first-round draft picks for a guy that, to me, is at risk every single game if you don't have the right offensive lineman there to protect him, where he could be knocked out, and you have Zach Wilson, which puts you in a position to fail this year and set your team back for another 2 years.
Right. And that's the value I think the Packers could have expected last year. I don't know if they're going to be able to get it this year because it's another $50 million. And these teams are not, the Jets have the money to make it work. But again, it's still a very risky thing because they have to also pay Quinnen Williams. They're going to have to try to restructure some of the guys. You're not going to be able to keep everybody, obviously. Corey Davis will be gone, a couple of the offensive linemen, but you have to try to restructure CJ Mosley. That could be hard in itself if they have to take on $50 million of Aaron Rodgers.
I think CJ will do that. I think if CJ knows that they're getting an elite quarterback in there to help them win a Super Bowl, I think CJ wants to win. He's never won.
Yeah.
CJ Mosley's never won a Super Bowl. Never.
In theory, you would hope that would be the case. But again, every player is going to be different. You don't know what they're going to be seeking. CJ Mosley might be thinking, all right, I want one more bigger contract because I played well this year.
He already said that he wants to play out his career with the New York Jets. He's already come out and said that he's reconstructed his contract last year. Why not reconstruct it again this year? Maybe save about $5-6 million, shed it off. So you have to pay Quincy Williams. You have to pay Quentin Williams. So you have to pay these guys. So to me, Aaron Rodgers is expensive, and he can reconstruct his contract. He'll sign a 2-year deal. I would say, let's say $60 million. The Jets give him $60 million guaranteed, just like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins signed, I think he signed a 2-year, $80 million contract with the Minnesota Vikings, which gave him $40 million a year. Now, Aaron Rodgers would have to take a significant pay cut if the Jets want to sign Quentin Williams to a long-term deal and Quincy Williams and maybe add a piece here and a piece there to fill in certain spots that can help them move forward in a new year with the type of player that Aaron Rodgers is.
It's just interesting to see how much they're going to be able to restructure it too, because Aaron Rodgers, he might say he wanted to restructure it with the Packers. That doesn't mean he's going to necessarily want to restructure for the same value if he's traded elsewhere.
Do you think he has a better chance of winning with the Packers or the Jets?
I would say the Jets, but I don't know what he's thinking because I don't know what kind of loyalty he still has with the organization. From what we're hearing in the mainstream media, it seems bad, but is it that bad internally? I don't know. That's something only Aaron Rodgers would have to tell us personally or publicly to be able to say that. But again, how big of a pay cut is going to make it work? And is it worthwhile for a team like the Jets or even the Raiders too, that have their own salary cap issues to have to manage with too? And like you were saying, their defense is so far behind there. If they trade all these wide receivers, is Aaron Rodgers going to want to go there type thing? It's going to be tough to tell if you're the Raiders too. The Jets have a little more leeway because they are so young and deep in a lot of other areas.
Young and deep, and they're good in every single area. They're special teams. They have a pretty good special teams. They also have to bring back Greg the Leg. He only signed a 1-year deal with the Jets.
Right.
So they have to bring him back. He was one of the best kickers in the league. They have to find a punter. Are they going to bring in a free agent punter? Punters are getting expensive because they're very important parts to a team. So I think they draft a punter or they bring in a free agent runner for cheap.
Yeah,
I don't know.
for
Maybe
$1 million.
Maybe they find somebody in the soccer leagues overseas or something like that. We've seen teams do that, but especially Weatherford.
Steve Weatherford.
Steve Weatherford was a soccer player and turned into a football player. He played with the Jets and then went to the Giants and won a couple of Super Bowls.
Thank God. Matt Dodge was horrible.
Yeah,
Steve Weatherford saved a lot there.
So, I mean, when you look at the big picture here for the Jets, they're missing maybe one or two important pieces that could take them over the top. I think the offensive line needs to be reconstructed in the offseason. They have Lincoln Tomlinson, Elijah Vera Tucker. Those are your two guards. Maybe you move Elijah Vera Tucker to the right tackle position. And then Max Mitchell, when he comes back, you move him to the guard position. Now you have youth over there. And you draft a center sometime in this year's draft at 3 or 4 in the 3rd or 4th round. Get yourself a young, talented center. And then you roll with Dwayne Brown or Mekhi Becton. That's what you roll with as your left tackle going into the year. And then you have some players you bring in. They have some guys on the bench that they can maneuver and that are not too expensive that they can bring, because you need depth on the offensive line and defensive line. You need depth. And the Jets have some young depth, but maybe they need to add more young depth into the draft. So free agency is not the way Douglas is going to look if they bring in somebody like Aaron Rodgers. I think it makes a lot of sense to bring in Derek Carr, because Derek Carr is not going to be too expensive. If the Jets have to trade for Derek Carr 4 days after the Super Bowl, they would only have to give up a 4th or a 3rd.
Yep.
That would be the most. I don't think more than a 4. Okay, and if they decide if Vegas can't move him, because everybody knows and their mother knows that they want to get rid of him. If they can't move him, his contract becomes null and void, or they waive him, and then he can go wherever he wants.
That's a dead cap hit of over $30 million as well, which the Raiders are not going to want to have to deal with when it comes to trying to either pursue Aaron Rodgers, pursue Tom Brady, because odds are that if Derek Carr's gone anyway, odds are they're going to go for one of those big fish in order to just keep their reputation up and try to not waste Devontae Adams either. And whether Josh McDaniels gets his guy in Tom Brady, or whether Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams reunite again with the Raiders, it seems like one of those things seems plausible, but the Raiders have to make their own decisions to try to manage their own cap, because Derek Carr is going to be very expensive if they don't trade him, because he's going to get $40 million, $30 million off the cap of dead cap, like Jeff was saying earlier with Amari Cooper. It's going to be a lot.
It's so interesting when you think about the whole Derek Carr thing and Aaron Rodgers, because I know those are the two high-profile quarterbacks that everybody here in New York is talking about. It's not Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson don't make any sense for the New York Jets. He doesn't. I was listening to Josh when he called me today, and he was trying to compare and contrast the 3 quarterbacks. The Jets, Lamar Jackson don't make any sense for the Jets. None whatsoever, because they have to change the offense. That means really in the offseason, they have to shake up their offensive line. Maybe they have to trade Lincoln Tomlinson, because he doesn't work in that offense. He really doesn't. Right. They need to find faster offensive linemen, because they need to move. It's a running game. It becomes an all-out running team. Now, does that make having Lamar Jackson, does that open up the field for Breece Hall? Absolutely does. Sure. It will. It'll make Breece Hall even better. It'll make Lamar Jackson even better. But they're not a running team. That'll piss off Garrett Wilson. That'll piss off Elijah Moore, because they're not going to throw the ball. And everybody says, well, he's never had great wide receivers like Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson. Well, he doesn't have to, because he runs the ball 90% of the time. That's his game. So it doesn't make sense. So Lamar Jackson, take him out. Jimmy Garoppolo, there's no interest anymore. Mike LaFleur is not there anymore. Right. So there's no interest in Jimmy Garoppolo. There's only 2 guys. And it's not Tom Brady either, because Tom Brady is not going to the Jets. He's not.
I don't know how much Jets fans would even accept that.
Tom Brady is not going to the Jets. I have a better chance of getting
Geno Smith back.
No, I have a better chance of getting Tom Brady's underwear signed by him than him coming and playing for the New York Jets. Okay? It's not happening. So Jet fans, stop bringing up Tom Brady all over social media. Well, Tom Brady in a Jets jersey. He is not coming to New York. He's not. And by the way, Tom Brady wears what number?
12.
Have you heard, and I'll say this again, have you heard anything from Joe Namath on taking his number out of retirement for Tom Brady?
That's true.
You haven't. You haven't, and you won't, because he won't do that. So for all you Jet fans out there sitting here today and trying to think that you're trying to talk the Jets into to making a move for Tom Brady. Tom Brady is either going to Miami, Oakland, or whatever, Vegas, or retiring. We used to think it was San Francisco, but now that San Francisco has this thing with Trey Lance and Brock Purdy, I think in the offseason they're going to have their own problems with that. I don't think Tom Brady in the mix or Aaron Rodgers in the mix makes any sense. So I think the two quarterbacks that the Jets are going to be interested in is Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. They have to make a decision soon with Aaron Rodgers because after the Super Bowl, the Raiders have 4 days to decide what they're doing with Derek Carr. And after that, his contract is already, it goes right into form, and then they have to try to move that contract sometime at the trade deadline. I don't know. I don't know if they'll be able to do that. Is a team going to take that 4-year extent? I think it's 4 years left on that contract. Is a team going to take that? It doesn't make sense. So what I would do is I would either trade him or let him go. It will go $30 million to your cap, and it's going to hurt your chances of getting Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. But maybe you want to do a favor for Derek Carr and let him pick where he wants to go. I don't think that's going to happen. I think somebody will trade them something. I think if the Jets really want Derek Carr, give him a 4th-round draft pick. You'll get him. And you move on. You don't have to give up any more. You still have your 1st, your 2nd, your 3rd this year. And you'll have your 1st, your 2nd, your 3rd, your 4th, your 5th next year. Derek Carr makes the most sense, but knowing Woody Johnson and him wanting to make a splash, he is going to do everything he possibly can to get Aaron Rodgers. Everything. He did everything he possibly can to get Brett Favre. He did it. Mm-hmm. He decided to part ways with the quarterback that they drafted in Chad Pennington, like I said. Eric Mangini, who had a great first year, remember that? Had a great first year as the coach. They had all that great draft. And what did they do? They decided, hey, you know what? We're going to bring in Brett Favre. And I don't know if anybody knows this. Woody Johnson went to Eric Mangini and told Eric Mangini, if the Brett Favre, exclusive quarterback year doesn't work out for the Jets, that you will not lose your job. We will just move on from Brett Favre. And what happened at the end of the year? The Jets wanted to keep Brett Favre, and they fired. Woody Johnson fired Eric Mangini, and then he obviously signs with the Browns, and there she blows. Eventually, he becomes the coach of the Browns. A year later, they make a move, and the Jets move up with the Browns to get Mark Sanchez.
Yep.
How quick did that happen?
How ironic.
I mean, that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And that's go ahead.
I was going to say, and that's the difference that these other organizations are going to have to figure out, where the owners cannot have too much ego say in their organizations too. And you wonder if Woody Johnson, whether they trade for Aaron Rodgers and get the draft picks, or they trade for Aaron Rodgers on a bargain that's a little more affordable, can try to finally level with Joe Douglas and make it where it doesn't have to feel like such a big swing. Because we saw that with the Bengals too. When Mike Brown was a very stubborn owner for a while and had a big ego, and the Bengals were called cheap. They were only paying their own players. They didn't want to go after free agents, and they didn't really want to change anything. All the years that the Bengals fans wanted to fire Marvin Lewis, they wouldn't change. They finally evolved. Look at where they are now. We're in the Super Bowl this year, back-to-back AFC Championship games. Same kind of thing with the Raiders. The Raiders with Mark Davis, stubborn ownership that wants their own way. They got rid of their interim coach that went to the playoffs last year. Hired Josh McDaniels. Why? Ego. Miami, same kind of thing. Good team, ruined by bad ownership for a while, tampering for Tom Brady. The Jets have to make sure they can find a middle ground to make it work with both Woody Johnson and Joe Douglas. Otherwise, it's going to be a bad experiment again.
The Jaguars game, and we spoke with Mike Hollis about this. The Jaguars game was so very interesting. It really was. We had the chance to see two of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL, and Patrick Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, again, started off really rough, and as the second half begun, he started settling in and started playing well. He really did. And the Jaguars had a chance to win in this game. Mm-hmm. After Mahomes got hurt in the second quarter, a lot of people, when obviously Henny came into the game, and by the way, had a touchdown and played very well when he did come in. And that has a lot to do with Chad Henning. He's very well respected around the league. He's been in the league for like 12, 13 years. Yep. He played for multiple teams. But Henny is a very well-respected, well-rounded quarterback. And he made the plays that he needed to make. They scored a touchdown. and help them have the lead going into the second half. But I think they were down 17-10 going into the second half of the game, and you saw that Patrick Mahomes came back. They cortisoned his leg or whatever the heck, his ankle. He came back. You could tell that he couldn't throw off that back leg. You could tell that he couldn't throw off that back leg. And I thought that was going to cost the Kansas City Chiefs, because as soon as the Jaguars smell blood, they attack it. They did it. They won 6 games in a row going into that game. 6 games in a row. It's not easy. A Jaguars team that barely won 6 games last year. They didn't even win 6 games.
They didn't win 6 games the last 2 years.
Yeah, okay. They won 6 games in a row to get into that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And to me, they had a great game plan. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes getting hurt wasn't what they planned, but it definitely worked out for him. And Trevor Lawrence in the second half, he didn't have one of those, game-changing games. He made a mistake at the end of the game, which cost them a chance to maybe take the ball down the field, the interception that he threw. But Trevor Lawrence, to me, is the future. He is the future. The Jaguars, next year, remember, everybody, he made a trade. The Jaguars made a trade at the trade deadline. Remember who they landed, Speedy?
Calvin Ridley.
Calvin Ridley, who was a number 1 target for the Atlanta Falcons for years, including he was practically the number 1 target the last 2 years. Julio Jones was there. Calvin Ridley obviously was suspended this year for betting on football. He was. He also got, I think he was suspended for steroids abuse. Oh, no, drug abuse. I think it was marijuana.
Yep.
Calvin Ridley comes back next year. Christian Kirk. You bring back, I don't know, Pod Hands. Evan Ingram. You bring him back next year. This is going to be an explosive team next year. Doug Peterson has it right. This team is going to be a force to be reckoned with. To me, Tennessee's done. Their reign over there in the division is done. The Colts, they need to look for a quarterback. If they bring in a rookie quarterback, how long is it going to take that quarterback to develop? They have Taylor there. They have weapons there. It doesn't matter.
They might not have Taylor there for long. He'll be a free agent after next year.
But he's still there. They're going to re-sign Taylor. But to me, they're the team to beat in that division moving forward. A very weak division. And we know what the Texans are.
Yeah, the Texans are the team that nobody wants to coach and nobody wants to play for. So they're going to be in tough rut for a while until they make changes with their ownership.
Travis Kelce had a fantastic game with a career high 14 catches, tied third most among active players in a single game. Keenan Allen and Michael Thomas are tied for the record with 16, and Brandon Marshall has the all-time record with 21. Chad Henne led a 98-yard touchdown drive with Mahomes hurt, the longest touchdown drive in postseason history, for breaking a record set by the Saints in 2019, who had 92-yard drive against the Eagles. So backup quarterback in Chad Henne, breaking an NFL record. Chris Jones with 6 total pressures, but did not have a sack. Jones does not have a sack in his playoff history. I'm sorry. So Chris Jones has not 1 sack in playoff history.
I'm surprised at that. That stunned me when I saw that.
Trevor Lawrence, 5.6 yards per pass, was his second lowest total of the season. Only the Broncos' loss in London at 4.29 per pass. So if you look at the numbers, they don't stand out. But when he needed to make a play, he made it. And that's all you need. We have seen quarterbacks, great quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, when they won the Super Bowl, when they beat the Broncos, did Russell Wilson have a good game?
He didn't need to.
He didn't need to. The defense helped.
And the special teams.
And the running game. Marshawn Lynch. So you don't really need the quarterback to do the great thing. Tom Brady, how many great Super Bowls has he had out of the 7 that he's won?
Probably, of the 7 he's won, probably half, yeah.
3. He's had 3 really good Super Bowls, especially the one against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Which he lost.
The first time against the Eagles, he played well.
The one against Atlanta was his best.
Was his best. That was definitely his best. The one against Seattle, he played well too. But yeah, it's probably, when you judge it, 4 out of the 7 that these won, because even the Buccaneers one was more the defense too, and both Rams won definitely more the defense, and obviously Spygate.
Patrick Mahomes diagnosed with a high ankle sprain. High ankle sprains take 3 to 4 weeks to recover. 3 weeks from the Super Bowl if the Chiefs are able to advance. So he'll have at least 3 weeks of recuperation, and usually I would say a high top athlete like somebody like Patrick Mahomes, it'll take him 2 weeks to heal. He's young. He's got his youth behind him. How old is Patrick Mahomes? 27 years old. He's a kid. So he'll be able to heal quick. Tony Romo says he's worried about Mahomes' athleticism being limited by ankle injury because being that the Bengals will try to keep him in the pocket. So the Bengals did that against Josh Allen. That was the strength in this game. That's why the Bengals were able to keep Josh Allen one-dimensional. They closed up the gaps. They made sure they were coming off the edges to keep Allen in the pocket. And when Allen sits in the pocket, he's not at his best. When Allen, just like Patrick Mahomes is at his best moving outside of the pocket. Josh Allen is best when he's outside of the pocket. Lamar Jackson is at his best when he's outside of the pocket. And then there are quarterbacks like Joe Burrow. He's the best when he's in the pocket. Right. Justin Herbert, even though he's a mobile quarterback, he's the best when he's in the pocket. There are quarterbacks still that are mobile quarterbacks that are still great in the pocket. Joe Burrow is a good mobile quarterback. Right. He's not bad. He made some great plays, especially with his legs. Even against Buffalo, he ran the ball in certain aspects of the game. So Patrick Mahomes, his ankle, that's bad going into this game because he becomes one-dimensional. If he becomes one-dimensional and the Bengals know that, what are the Bengals going to do? They're going to obviously attack that one-dimensional side of the ball where, they're going to depend a lot more on Patrick Mahomes to make the play in the open field.
And that's going to force Andy Reid to have to change a lot too, where they're going to have to make it where these receivers can get more yards after the catch, because Patrick Mahomes, well, his arm strength is going to be limited from the pocket. It's still going to be limited throwing on the run too, especially on that left side too, which is the uncomfortable side for a right-handed quarterback rolling out to his left. And that's going to rely on guys like Kadarius Toney. You're going to have to make more yards after the catch. Valdes Scantling, normally known as a deep threat, is could probably have to be more of a short route type guy. And these running backs, they're going to have to get these running backs involved from a pass catching perspective. Watch out for somebody like Jerick McKinnon, who played well against the Bengals last year, to be that type of guy. Andy Reid's going to have to get very creative with that. Now, he has a week to prepare. Mahomes is obviously going to play, but he's going to have a game plan for that. So Andy Reid, you were considered one of the best offensive coaches in NFL history. This is going to be quite a challenge for you.
I think the advantage goes to Kansas City in this game, being that they're at home and they're in front of their crowd. It's going to be very, very loud. It's one of the loudest stadiums in all of football.
Yep.
But Travis Kelce is going to play a big part in this game. He is going to play another big part. Travis Kelce did everything in that game against the Jaguars. He was blocking. He was catching the ball. When they needed a catch, they needed to depend on somebody. It was Travis Kelce. And it used to be Tyreek Hill, but it's now become Travis Kelce. He's become the blanket and the number one target. Now, I think they need to spread out the offense more in this game. They cannot do what they did against the Jaguars against this Bengals team. The Bengals defense in the last couple of weeks have played better. Their secondary with Eli Apple and some of the weapons that they have over there have played better. Bates is one of the best safeties in football. So they have a tremendous defensive side of the ball. Now, going into this game, there's a lot of strengths in this game that I saw from Kansas City. First of all, they have the better coach. We all know that. Andy Reid is one of the greatest offensive minds the NFL has ever seen. This is a guy that has won a Super Bowl before. This is a guy who's been in multiple Super Bowls before. He understands what it takes to get there. How many back-to-back AFC title games has this guy been to?
And like 7 in the NFC with the Eagles.
I mean, this guy has been in AFC, NFC title games his whole career. This guy has been a winner everywhere he's gone. So I trust Andy Reid over, obviously, our boy Zach. All right. Here's another thing. When I look at the intangibles of the Kansas City Chiefs, and I mean by the offensive line to the Bengals offensive line, I still don't trust the Bengals offensive line. They had a tremendous game against a tremendous defense. It was in the snow. Kansas City, it's not snowing this week. It's actually going to be in the 40s this week. So it's not going to be too cold. It's not going to be wet. It's supposed to be dry. So Joe Mixon, who has not had a breakout year, hasn't done well this year. He hasn't had one of those seasons that we expected. Perine had a very good year, but he's been back and forth with injury. They're going to have to depend on using and throwing in the air. Now, Kansas City secondary, it's obviously it doesn't have the secondary they had with Berry and the Honey Badger,
Brandon Flowers,
and
those
Brandon
guys.
Flowers.
Yeah.
They don't have that kind of secondary, but they have a front seven in Jones and some of the weapons that they have in Clark that could get at you, and they're going to put pressure. We all know what they like to do and what they're strong at, and they like to use different blitz packages, like they did in 2000, like the Giants did in 2007.
Yep.
As we know who the defensive coordinator is.
Spagnuolo.
So we know what they like to do and how they define their defense. So I think going into this game, I think they'll have a good game plan. This is going to be very important. They have to run the ball, and they have to be superior running the ball this week against this Bengals defense.
Mm-hmm.
They have to run this ball because they got to take pressure, and they have to take pressure off of Patrick Mahomes, where he's not doing more in the open field with his legs and just using his arm.
Right.
Because they're going to get his body strong enough where he can plant his foot and he can throw the ball.
Yep. The other thing that's interesting too is I think the way that they could overload guys on the one side of the field, because we even saw the Bills throughout the third quarter when they were moving the ball well. It was when they had 3 or 4 receivers on the same side of the formation, and Josh Allen was able to get out quickly. I think the Chiefs have to use a lot of those concepts too, because Mike Hilton for the Bengals, one of the better slot corners in the league. And if they can decoy away from him with either a tight end or a running back that's a little bigger and go for power, they can win a little more, because the Bengals, they've had their issues at certain points in the year with tight ends. Now they did do well against Kelsey. They were limiting to short catches in the first meeting. They limited him to short catches in the AFC Championship game last year, but still it's a tough matchup going against Kelsey, who's very good in the slot as it is and versatile all over the place. So if they can get other guys with him so they don't just either bracket Kelsey or double team Kelsey, that could help Mahomes out a lot too, especially on the right side of the formation, because Eli Apple it pains me to admit, he's played well this year, but he's a low-end number 1 corner, and that second corner spot is a little iffy on that right side. They have a rookie in Cam Taylor-Britt right now, but he's not great. So if they can attack that area and maybe it'll open up man-to-man on the other side of the field, that'll help Mahomes out a lot.
It's so interesting when we try to compare and contrast the quarterbacks that are still in the playoffs right now. You have a rookie quarterback in Brock Purdy right now going against Jalen Hurts, who this is his first real big playoff run he's ever had. So these are 2 rookie quarterbacks playing in the first NFC title game, and they both played against each other before in college.
Yep.
And obviously, if you remember that game, Purdy outplayed Jalen Hurts in that game.
I remember that game. Iowa State went for the win, went for 2, and they missed.
Yes, Purdy outplayed Jalen Hurts in that game.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Yep.
Against Oklahoma. Iowa State against Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And so these guys know each other very, very well. They know each other very, very well. Now, obviously, they're playing. It's college. It's the NFL in college, so it's different. But who do we have?
It's also Big 12 defenses. Jeff is back.
Jeff, what's up, man?
I mean, I think that you guys are forgetting the biggest factor in both of these games, though, right? Because, players decide a lot of this, but you're forgetting it's the referees. The referees decide the game.
Here we go.
Well, yes, if you're the LA Rams, they do.
Well, yeah, that's the obvious one. And so I heard you talking about the Jets earlier and what they need and what they don't need.
Yeah.
Who do they have the room under the salary cap? Do you think they pay the $60 million and pay Rodgers to bring him in?
He already said he would reconstruct his contract. Now, I don't know if he'll do it with the Jets, but he said he'll do it with Green Bay. If the Jets have to give up picks, and I've read, there are quite a few people, including Peter King, that said that they're asking for 2 first-round draft picks. Peter King never said that they were definitely getting 2 first-round draft picks. So I believe that they'll have to give up a conditional first-round draft pick and maybe a second. I would say a second this year and a first round next year, where the Jets could land Aaron Rodgers. Are they going to have to pay him $50 million? I think he'll reconstruct it where the Jets can give him $35 million a year, sign him 2 years, give him $70 million guaranteed, and they can move on with this. And if Aaron really wants to play as a New York Jet, I don't know if he does. A lot of people believes that he wants to go back to Green Bay if he comes back. So there's no guarantees to this.
All right, the Jets need a quarterback.
Yes.
You're the resident Jets fan.
Yeah.
Jerry Jones calls you and says, "We'll give you Dak." Do you take him?
No.
Why not?
I like Dak Prescott, but we know what he could do in the playoffs. I want a guy that, even though Derek Carr has really not been in the playoffs a lot, I think Derek Carr would fit very, very well with this team. I think he has an understanding.
So Derek Carr is better than Dak now.
Oh yeah, I think Derek Carr is absolutely better than Dak Prescott. 100%.
Wow.
100%.
Okay.
I do. I think Derek Carr is 100% better than Dak Prescott. I think Derek Carr makes a lot of sense for the New York Jets. It does, because they would only have to, what I've read, they would only have to give up a third or a fourth. So you don't have to give up much for him. You're taking over a 4-year contract, $30 million a year, which is affordable contract for the Jets. They could still give Quinn Williams the $21 million that he wants and give him his contract. They could still bring in pay Quincy Williams and maybe bring in a free agent. It makes a lot of sense to go with Derek Carr over Aaron Rodgers. Now, Aaron Rodgers is the superstar player. He's still an elite player. You bring him in, you're already, Vegas will put the Jets as a top 3, top 4 team right now in the NFL that is going to be a Super Bowl contender. No doubt, if they bring in Aaron Rodgers, that will make him a contender. But the question is Aaron Rodgers going to be 100% healthy all season long? If you look at the last 4 seasons, Aaron Rodgers has had nagging injuries every single year. He's played with them, but nagging injuries. You cannot trust that your backup quarterback in Zach Wilson is sitting on the bench, and if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt in Game 5 or Game 6 and he's out for a significant amount of time and the Jets lose 5 or 6 games in a row and they miss the playoffs, you're losing another lottery. You're going to lose a lottery pick that you're giving up, a conditional pick that you're giving up the next year in the first round. It doesn't make sense.
Would you even trade for Derek Carr when you can get him for free rather than giving up draft picks? All you got to do is wait till, a week after the Super Bowl?
4 days.
Well, that's when they have to trade Derek Carr, but then the free agency period won't open up for another month. So there's going to be some kind of competition there. So maybe the Jets would just say, all right, I'll give you a 4th round or 5th round pick, depending on when the deadline is, and just seal him from there.
And that's what I think the
Jets
do.
But if you trade for him and take that contract on, you're getting Derek Carr for $43 million a year.
No.
Right? And do you want to risk that rather than force the Raiders to cut him and then you negotiate a brand new contract for him where you don't have to pay that money?
Yes, and I understand what you're saying, and maybe that's the route that the Jets want to go. But they have to make sure that Derek Carr is not going to be traded, because then they put their eggs in one basket in Aaron Rodgers. And if Aaron Rodgers doesn't want to be a Jet, or Aaron Rodgers wants to go back to Green Bay, then they lose out on Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr. So that doesn't make sense. So
Ben says, did Rodgers already redo his contract a season or 2 ago to go all in? Didn't work with him. Need to move on from Aaron. Well, you're not going to get 2 first-round picks most likely, Ben. So good luck with that.
Yeah, no, he's probably not. But I mean, he's a proven. I don't like giving up anything for Aaron Rodgers because he could quit at any moment. He costs too much money. I mean, I think next year, doesn't he count for like $60 million against someone's cap next year?
The dead cap, yeah, is over $60 million. I think it's 62.
Yeah, but
that's absurd.
Yeah, but that's why he's going to reconstruct his contract. He already said that if he goes back to Green Bay, he will reconstruct his contract, and I believe that if the Jets trade for him, he'll absolutely reconstruct his contract, because there's no way the Jets can bring back Quinn Williams if they don't. There's no way.
I mean, the Jets are in a bad spot though, because there's not many quarterbacks out there that you'd really want to have, right? Like, who's going to be available? Like, if we're being realistic, Lamar Jackson is not available. They can franchise tag him, and that is what it is.
They're not getting
right. He's right. He's not going to be available. Everyone says it's a free agent, but they'll probably franchise. Right. Rodgers, who knows what the Rodgers situation is? Derek Carr is available, but if Derek Carr is the only one with so many teams needing quarterback, can the Jets win a bidding war? And would you even want to win a bidding war and overpay for a guy that may not be very good?
I think Douglas will have his limit, though. I don't think he'll go too much further.
No, I don't think so either. And if it comes down to it, Douglas will have a limit, and Douglas will have a limit on what he's going to trade too. What he's going to give up.
But for the Jets, it's Derek Carr or Zach Wilson again. Like, because if you miss on Carr, who else is out there?
Then you might have to settle with guys like Jimmy Garoppolo or somebody like that. So I don't know if the Jets are going to want to do that. So
would you take Ryan Tannehill?
No. I don't think the Jets are interested in Ryan Tannehill anyways.
Ben says Rodgers reconstructed the contract a season or two ago to bring in more weapons. It didn't help. Doubt he'll do it again.
Well, he already said that he will. He was on the Pat McAfee show, and he said that he would. So if he
said a lot of things, and it was all so vague because he said everything all at once. He said, I'd like to stay and finish my career here, but I'd also wouldn't mind seeing if there's a team out there that I could go to. And he said everything, dude. What a horrible interview that was.
Yeah, and Pat McAfee and him are very close, so he's only going to speak to Pat McAfee because Pat will let him say what he wants and not attack him. If he goes on another show, people are going to eat him up alive because they know that he's an interesting character and he has his own opinion towards everything. I mean, everything that's come out in his mouth over the last couple of weeks, especially last couple of months, are a little crazy. So
it's the ayahuasca, bro. Don't blame him.
Whatever it is, he's a little out there, and he has an interesting personality. But he's a fantastic quarterback. He's a fantastic talent, and whoever gets him next year is going to have a gem. If the Jets get him, yeah, I would say the Jets are a top 4 favorite to winning a Super Bowl. You can't even question it.
Oh, come on,
dude. I'm serious. 100%. 100%. You put Aaron Rodgers behind center right next year with the team that the Jets are going to have next year coming back. As long as Quentin Williams comes back. Yeah.
Right. But here's the problem. We see this all the time with a ton of teams. Mm-hmm. Unless you're adding to your team, you're moving backwards because other teams are going to improve too.
Mm-hmm. You don't think they're adding? You don't think they're adding to their team with Aaron Rodgers?
Well, it certainly would make them a playoff team, but top 4 Super Bowl contenders? Come on, bro. Let's just bring it back down to earth.
AFC, not the whole
in
league.
The AFC.
Yeah.
In the AFC.
Right. But you'd at least have the 3 teams that are there now, right? You'd at least have Cincinnati, Kansas City, Buffalo ahead of them.
I don't know. I don't know if I have Cincinnati ahead of them. I know I love what Cincinnati is doing right now. I love that they shocked everybody and they beat Buffalo. It was fantastic to watch. Fantastic. It really was. I don't know what Cincinnati is. Are they what they were last year? Going into
what are you talking about? You don't know what they are. They were in the Super Bowl last year. They're in the AFC Championship this year.
And they're going to be in the Super Bowl this year. I guarantee you they knock off Kansas City. Because
right.
Mahomes
So if you make it to back-to-back Super Bowls,
and you lose,
you can't go, I don't know what they are.
And they lose back. They're another Buffalo Bills. They're a team that goes to back-to-back.
No, let's not go there either. Buffalo did it 4 times.
I know.
You lose back-to-back ones.
I'm telling you right now, they match against the Eagles because I'm telling you, San Francisco is not beating the Eagles this week. They're not. They're not beating the Eagles this week.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Maybe we'll have a friendly bet.
Look, I don't. Yeah. I mean, well, how did our picks turn out last week?
Well, I don't know. What did the picks turn out?
Well, let's see. You picked.
2-2.
Yeah,
I was 2-2.
Yeah, because you picked the Bills and the Cowboys. Mm-hmm. So I think you were 2-2.
I was 2-2.
Jeff, you had so you and I were both 3-1. Jeff, you and I were both 3-1. Yeah.
Oh, so we're in first and Errol's still in last.
Yeah, because we our only difference was the Niners and the Cowboys.
Dude,
so he's 2 games back of us now.
Yeah, good. Congratulations. It doesn't matter to me. If this isn't a competition.
As much as I wanted to pick the Giants, I just couldn't. I didn't.
No one could. No one could.
This isn't a competition. The fact is that I believe the Eagles are absolutely going to outmatch the 49ers. Being that they're home, it's not going to be in San Francisco.
I think that you're underestimating the 49ers defense.
No, I think you underestimate the Eagles defense.
I'm not. I think I'm not because they have Jordan Davis, and I've been championing that the whole time.
Of course.
I told you before. I wanted the Patriots to get Jordan Davis. I was dying for you. We did not draft him. I was like, please let Jordan Davis get this.
We'll get into the game.
Jordan Davis is a stud.
We'll get into the game tomorrow because we have to go, Jeff, and we have a lot to talk about tomorrow. It's a big show tomorrow. Speedy, who do we have on tomorrow?
Returning to the show at 9:30 is our friend Antoine Harris, former Falcons, Eagles, and Titans safety, and the president of Sneakerhead University at 9:30, and at 10 o'clock, we were supposed to have him on last week, had a family emergency. Former Jags and Cowboys defensive end Jeremy Mincy, who also has a production company.
That's right. I'm looking forward to that.
You guys always do this, right? You guys always get like a football player that's doing something. Can you guys please, for the love of God, try to get Ed Hockley or some former referee? I want to hear what their beef is with the Cowboys and why they only call penalties on Dallas and not against other teams.
Speedy, go reach out to
Ed Hockley? All right, I could definitely make that work.
Can we get a beef debate with Ed Hockley?
Oh God, I don't know if Ed Hockley's going to want that.
I would love to watch a like 20-year referee veteran and lawyer have a debate with a guy with a secret coleslaw recipe.
I don't think Ed Hockley's going to want that, Jeff.
All right, Jeff. Thank you.
What? You wouldn't want to see that debate?
I don't know if he would want to, Jeff.
No, I don't want to see that debate.
I think that would be an exciting debate.
I'm sure you do. Thank you, Jeff.
It's the referees.
Jeff from Tampa, everybody, for a second time. Don't we love him?
Yeah, let's just end with that. It's the referees.
Well, it wasn't the referee's fault on Sunday. That's for sure. It was just a lot of bad play calling by Mike McCarthy in the fourth quarter. And the Cowboys had a chance to win the game. They did. They had a chance to come back in the game. They had plenty of chances, just bad play calling. And honestly, I really don't blame Dak Prescott for everything. I know a lot of people want to point fingers at him. They only have really one good weapon in CeeDee Lamb. Pollard was a good one. They lost him in the second quarter. As soon as Pollard went out, I knew the game was over. If I were a betting man and I bet on the Cowboys to win that game, if I was a betting game and I had to rebet after Pollard got out, I'm betting that the San Francisco 49ers were going to win. I knew after the second quarter, there was no way they were going to come back when they have one weapon on the field. They already know that Pollard was going to touch the ball 90% of the time, and they already knew that CeeDee Lamb was their number one target.
And Pollard was the best as well to counter the pressure. Now, game planning wise, the pressure didn't affect them because Dallas' offensive line played well, but still.
Zeke hasn't looked good for weeks.
No, Zeke is a fullback playing or getting paid like a running back at this
he
point in his
hasn't looked
career.
good for weeks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a shame, but it wasn't all Dak Prescott's fault. It was the play calling. It was coaching. It was everything. Dak didn't look good. He did not play well. And that interception in the first quarter was horrible. But it wasn't all his fault. And I think everybody needs to stop burning his jerseys, breaking TVs. It's ridiculous.
They just want to get viral.
Whatever it is, I feel bad for Dak. I do. Going into the offseason, Dak's got a lot to prove, man. Mm-hmm. This is his last year where they can obviously, drop him in the offseason after next year.
Right.
He needs to show up. He needs to get this team in an NFC title game. If he can get him in the NFC title game, Super Bowl, I mean, they'll renegotiate his deal and he'll be a Cowboy for life. If not, he's going to be looking for a backup job because he'll never start in the NFL again. I don't think any team will give him a starting job if he can't win in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Tony Romo was the only guy that had opportunities because the Cowboy fans loved him. The Cowboy fans loved. The guy was a horrible playoff player. Horrible. Yep. And I don't remember the last time the Cowboys had a good quarterback that was good in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember.
Yeah, has to go back to Aikman probably.
They haven't had one since Troy Aikman. That was in the 90s.
Yep.
You're talking about almost 30 years ago. So, and I could say the same for the Jets.
There's a reason the Cowboys have not made a conference championship game in the 21st century.
But it's not Dak
Prescott. It's not all the quarterback. There's always some other issue, whether it's coaching, whether it's defense. The Cowboys are not consistently good all at once with everything. And as a result, they're one of the only 3 teams that have never made an NFC championship game. The other 2 being dysfunctional messes of the Washington, whatever they call themselves, and the Lions. And in the AFC, there's not many teams either that haven't made a single one. I think it's only the Browns and the Texans, and I think Miami are the only ones in the AFC. And the Cowboys are supposed to be this highly touted, rich organization that always has high expectations. We haven't seen them in a conference championship game in the 21st century.
It's crazy. But we'll have a great show lined up for you guys tomorrow. Stay tuned. Rob Carpenter, I don't know what happened to him. we'll try to get him on again.
I'm going to try to get him on a Thursday, maybe a Wednesday. It's just harder for him. I don't know.
He's busy.
Yeah,
he's a busy guy.
He's a busy
I think
guy.
he's too busy for us. So
I don't know.
But shout out to Rob. We understand that he's a busy guy, ex-NFL player. But like to thank, obviously, our guest, Mike Hollis, for joining us. Pro Form Kicking Academy. He's fantastic. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's fantastic. He knows his stuff. So thank you to Mike. Thank you to all the fans that tune into us every single week, all our shows throughout the country. Thank you. Listen to our show tomorrow. We will be live at 9 p.m. Until then, this is Errol Mark, Speedy PD, and our show, the Sports Loudmouth, saying good night. And we'll talk to you then. Good night.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.